Part 53. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 522. What did he say? Seeing Zhou Jing hang up the phone, Xiao Qiao asked quickly. Zhou Jing glanced at her and said hesitantly, Mr. Li said, I want you to live in peace of mind and go back whenever you want. Live in peace of mind? Xiao Qiao became a little anxious when she heard this. Can't Li Jia coax her? She will never give in easily this time. She would never go back unless Li Jia came to coax her and beg her. Will definitely not go back. Zhou went shopping early in the morning, but this time she no longer went to buy clothes and cosmetics, but to visit a maternal and child product store. She buys everything she sees, including baby clothes, cribs, toys, and daily necessities. She also bought a lot of prenatal education books and CDs to prepare for prenatal education in advance. Generally, prenatal education can be started only after the fetus has developed its sense of touch and taste around 16 weeks of pregnancy. She is only 3 weeks pregnant now, and it is still early for prenatal care. After shopping for a whole day and returning to the apartment in the evening, Zhou learned that Xiao Qiao had run away from home. Seeing Xiao Qiao really getting into trouble with Li Jia impulsively, she was not very happy, but rather a little complicated. Zhou subconsciously touched her lower abdomen, which was smooth and flat without a trace of fat. She didn't want to be a bad woman, but she had to fight for her children. After May Day, more than a week passed in the blink of an eye. Every day when Li Jia comes back from get off work, he goes to Wang's Heining and Zhou's room to stay with them for a while. He would spend a little longer with Wang's Heining, and as the days before her due date came closer, she was inevitably a little nervous and always had random thoughts. Zhou was also pregnant, and Xiao Qiao ran away from home again. The task of accompanying Li Jia fell to Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi. In particular, Shen Xinyi was taken care of by Li Jia. Who makes her feel the best when bullied? I would go to her room and sit for a while every night. However, after only 1 week, Shen Xinyi had had enough of this good life of exclusive favor. This guy Li Jia bullied her to death like an animal, so that she no longer had the energy to live broadcast or film. She told Li Jia to let her rest for 2 days, but Li Jia agreed and still came over at night. Later, she couldn't stand it anymore, so she locked the door at night and refused to open it no matter how Li Jia called. As soon as Shen Xian went on strike, Lu Kaiyu also passively slowed down his work, and Li Jia suddenly felt that life became difficult. He works hard during the day and cannot even relax at night. That night, when Li Jia was bored watching the live broadcast in his room, Zhang Jiao suddenly called and said that she, Zhang Li, Zhang Yuxi and the others were at the bar and asked him to come out and sit down. Why did Zhang Jiao suddenly become so familiar with Li Jia? It was because the two of them had had 2 or 3 meals together in private. Don't get me wrong, it's just eating and nothing else. Before, Li Jia would have promised Zhang Jiao to go out with them. It is a sensible act for an artist to take the initiative to contact his boss to express his feelings. How could he refuse? But after the last dream within a dream, Li Jia really decided to give up. At first, he just wanted to find a girlfriend who he liked and was more beautiful. The two of them could support each other, trust each other, and live an ordinary life. Even when I was just reborn, I just wanted to have a few more beautiful girlfriends to make up for my regrets, and then find a girl with suitable conditions to get married. But as Li Jia's career grew bigger and bigger, and he made more and more money, his inner desires became bigger and bigger. The bottom line is also getting lower and lower. But there is no limit to human desires. If one forgets his original intention and is completely dominated by desires, then he will not be himself. After hanging up the phone, Li Jia got up from the bed and came to the floor-to-ceiling window. He looked at the scenery outside and fell into deep thought. If he continues to indulge like this, sooner or later he will betray his family members, and Xiao Jiao and the others will also break up with him. Even if some of them still stay with him by then, it will only be for money. Li Jie naturally doesn't understand this truth, but who can resist the temptation and desire? He kept warning himself before, but people were sinking step by step in temptation and desire. That dream within a dream made him wake up completely. This was a warning from his inner subconscious that he could not continue like this. Thinking of this, Li Jie took a long breath. Desire is an addictive poison that is difficult to control even though you know it is wrong. Thinking of that dream, he couldn't help but think of Xiao Jiao again. This time the president is really calm and has not come back for more than a week. He walked back to the bed, picked up his phone and sent a message to Xiao Jiao. "What, you haven't come back yet?" The Bund, Benjiang community. Xiao Jiao was lying on the sofa in the living room with her legs curled up, holding the remote control in her hand and changing channels absent-mindedly. It's been more than a week, why hasn't that guy Li Jie come to see her yet? He doesn't really like the new and hates the old. He wants to give up her and choose the fox that week, right? She was worried about gains and losses, and was so entangled that she wanted to move back on her own initiative but couldn't bear to do so. Zhou Jing, who was sitting next to Xiao Jiao, glanced at her worriedly, feeling that it was inappropriate for her to continue to be in such a stalemate with Li Jie, so she couldn't help but want to give her some advice. Just then the doorbell rang suddenly. Xiao Jiao sat up immediately. Li Jie must have come to find her. "I'll open the door." Zhou Jing stood up and said. Xiao Jiao subconsciously wanted to open the door first, but she quickly restrained herself. She couldn't be too proactive and make that guy Li Jie think she was easy to coax. Zhou Jing came to the door and opened the door. "Xiaojin, you are here." "Xiaojin." Xiao Jiao was immediately discouraged when he heard this. He turned around and took a look at Xiaojin and Miao Wenqian who walked in together. "Why are you here?" Xiaojin was stunned when she heard this. What did his sister mean? She didn't welcome them, right? His small two-bedroom apartment in Pudong New area has been renovated and has almost complete ventilation. He can move in with Miao Wenqian soon and start a happy cohabitation life. When Miao Wenqian said she was willing to move in with him, Xiaojin was really excited. Many people in the school are envious of having a girlfriend who is the school beauty, but they don't know how hard he is. They can only watch but cannot eat. It is really torture. Now he was finally going to get what he wanted. Xiaojin brought Miao Wenqian here today because she wanted to invite Xiao Jiao and Li Jie to their housewarming party next Saturday. After hearing this, Xiao Jiao nodded and said, "I know, I will definitely go there then, but your brother-in-law has been busy recently and may not have time." "Sister, just have a meal. No matter how busy my brother-in-law is, he won't be able to spare time for a meal, right?" Xiaojin said, looking up and down. Xiao Jiao said suspiciously, "You and my brother-in-law are not having any conflicts, right?" He sensed that something was wrong with his sister's mood. "It's nothing, don't make blind guesses," Xiao Jiao said a little unnaturally. Her reaction made Xiaojin even more suspicious, and her expression changed a bit. His sister, don't be stupid and lose his good brother-in-law. Not only him, but Miao Wenqian's face also changed. She recently agreed to live with Xiaojin because Xiao Jiao was getting married to Li Jie. There will be too many changes in Xiaojin's life in 4 or 5 years, but if she gets pregnant, their relationship will be completely stable. Unexpectedly, the relationship between Xiao Jiao and Li Jie suddenly changed. If Xiaojin wasn't Li Jie's brother-in-law, how could she like him? If Xiao Jiao and Li Jie couldn't get married as scheduled, they would have to find excuses to postpone the cohabitation matter. If Xiao Jiao doesn't marry Li Jie, the identity of Xiaojin's brother-in-law will be uncertain. Once Xiao Jiao and Li Jie break up, he will be nothing. If she was really pregnant, then she would be completely involved in it. There is no need to rush, the matter of living together should wait until Xiao Jiao and Li Zhejin get married. The news that Xiaojin was Li Zhe's brother-in-law had recently spread in their school, and several beautiful girls were eyeing his identity, which made Miao Wenqian feel a sense of crisis. She knew very well that men couldn't resist temptation, especially a restless little boy like Xiaojin. "Sister, you and my brother-in-law are getting married. Are there any conflicts that cannot be resolved?" Xiaojin said worriedly. Although he was a bit clueless, after being praised a few times by Miao Wenqian, he really thought he was very good, but he also knew that he could do so well in school only because he had a good brother-in-law. Otherwise, teachers and classmates, who would give him face? Where did he get the money to renovate the house, and where did he get the Land Rover to drive? "I said it's okay, so stop guessing," Xiao Jiao said a little upset. Her cheap brother was completely bribed by Li Zhe. After seeing off Xiaojin and Miao Wenqian, Xiao Jiao returned to the sofa and sat down, sighing depressedly. It was clearly Li Zhe who was in the wrong, so why did everyone around her advise her to take the initiative to reconcile with Li Zhe, as if she was in the wrong? At this time, I heard Zhou Jing beside me say, "Xiao Jiao, why don't we move back?" "Don't move," Xiao Jiao said angrily. She tolerated and compromised again and again, almost to the point of no bottom line. This time she will never compromise easily. Beep, the mobile phone on the coffee table suddenly vibrated, and Xiao Jiao picked it up reflexively. Zhou Jing on the side looked at it and shook her head inwardly. She was really suffering for being so hard-spoken and soft-hearted. Looking at the news on Cookhat, Xiao Jiao had an unconcealable smile on his face, and all the uneasiness and annoyance in his heart were gone. "Li Zhe, what, you're not coming back yet?" Sure enough, Li Zhe still liked her in his heart. "Go back. Do you think I'm a kitten or a puppy, and you go back as soon as you bark? It's useless even if you kneel down and beg me." She also added several disdainful expressions at the end. After typing, Xiao Jiao read it again and was quite satisfied with the reply. She wanted Li Zhe to know that she was not so easy to coax. Xiao Jiao sent the message and waited for Li Zhe's reply. But when I waited for the phone on the left, there was no movement, and when I waited on the right, there was still no movement on the phone. After more than half an hour, she lost her composure. How could this guy Li Zhe do this? After coaxing her, she gave up. Will he die if he coaxes her a little more? However, even if Li Zhe really coaxes her, she will not forgive him easily. Seeing Li Zhe take the initiative, Xiao Jiao's confidence suddenly increased again. "Why do you have nothing to say?" Li Zhe, who was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looked at the content on his phone and couldn't help but chuckle. This Xiao Jiao still couldn't calm down at all. However, what he likes most is paper tigers like her. Those real tigresses. He was very respectful and insensitive. "Jiao Bao, let's meet. At 8 o'clock the day after tomorrow, I'll be waiting for you at the bar on the rooftop of the old Captain Youth Hotel. We'll see you there." "Li Zhe, I will go if you ask me to." "Who do you think I am?" "Just wait, I won't go. I will never go back." "You won't go," Li Zhe smiled amusedly. If Xiao Jiao hadn't added an extra layer of emphasis, he wouldn't be sure yet. Now he was sure that Xiao Jiao would definitely come the night after tomorrow. After Li Zhe put away his phone, he sighed softly. Although he has made a complete choice in his heart, it does not mean that this matter is easy to solve. It is not easy to get either Xiao Jiao or Zhou Ziyu to give in. Compared to the overly smart Zhou Ziyu, Xiao Jiao is easier to fool. No, it's easier to coax. Li Zhe didn't want to force Zhou Ziyu to give in unless he had to, otherwise a gap would inevitably arise between the two, which was what he least wanted to see. However, he is not bullying Xiao Jiao, he will make it up to her in the future. Winning does not necessarily mean winning, and losing does not necessarily mean losing. In the master bedroom downstairs, Josiah wore a light pink silk nightgown, leaning on the bedside and reading a prenatal education book. At this time, the door was suddenly pushed open, and Li Jie walked in from the outside. "Husband, why are you here?" Josiah was a little surprised to see Li Jie coming. Wang's Haining is about to give birth, and Li Jie has been staying in her room recently. Josiah also understood this and had no intention of being jealous. "I'm here to stay with you," Li Jie said as he pulled away the silk quilt and lay on the bed. Josiah put the book aside, then smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. Li Jie hugged her gentle and jade-like body, and his eyes fell on her beautiful face. These days, whenever he sees Josiah, he can't help but think of that dream. He doesn't understand why Josiah doesn't exist in his dream. Li Jie was not a superstitious person originally, but after his rebirth, he became more in awe of the hidden existence of this world. Newton, Einstein, and Yang Zian, these top physicists all acknowledge the existence of a creator. Of course, the creator they are talking about is not a personal god, but the incarnation of the rules of the world, the cause of the origin of the universe. In other words, this world is like a computer and should be managed by a system. Li Jie suddenly thought that many rich people were very superstitious, believing in feng shui and destiny. Are these rich people stupider than ordinary people? "Husband, what are you thinking about?" Josiah asked softly after noticing that Li Jie was distracted. "Nothing," Li Jie smiled at her. "I don't think about it so much, I can't even think about it. However, we need to have more respect for this world. You must know how to be content and not be too greedy, otherwise the more you get in front of you, the more you will lose in the end. Not just emotionally, but also professionally." Over the past year or so, he has not only become emotionally indulgent, but has also become more and more blindly confident and arrogant in his career. He actually wanted to start a war with Penguin and Ari at the same time. With his current strength, how can he withstand the two major interest groups? If this continues, it will definitely not end well. He is now a top rich man, what's the point of having more money? There is simply no way to spend it all. In the past, when Li Jie had no money, he always felt that some rich people were so stupid that they had so much money that they couldn't spend it all, but they still stumbled over money because of greed. As a result, now he is also dazzled by fame and fortune. We still need to value harmony and get rich together. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 523. On the night of May 15th, Xiao Qiao wore a lake blue waist-length, knee-length dress. Her long, straight black hair was braided into delicate braids, hanging down on her chest. The side hair was tied with silver hair. The hairpin is fixed back, and a few strands of hair are scattered on the side of the thin bangs. She had obviously dressed up carefully, and she looked particularly pure, quiet, and somewhat ladylike. However, Xiao Qiao felt a little restless while sitting on the sofa, which seriously damaged this quiet temperament. Tonight is the day when Li Jie and Xiao Qiao set a date. Zhou Jing, who was sitting next to her, looked at the time on the wall and found that it was almost 9 p.m., so she asked, "Xiao Qiao, how about we go there?" How did Zhou Jing know that Xiao Qiao had a date with Li Jie tonight? Of course, it was Xiao Qiao who took the initiative to reveal it to her. She couldn't hide things in her heart, especially from those close to her. "I already said I won't go, let him wait and go," Xiao Qiao said firmly. She felt very happy when she thought that Li Jie was waiting for her. Zhou Jing couldn't help but shook her head inwardly after hearing this. This Xiao Qiao's mouth was really tough. If she really didn't want to go, she wouldn't have been busy dressing up since the afternoon. Time passed little by little, and after 9 o'clock, in the evening, Xiao Qiao became more and more restless. If it's too late, Mr. Li might leave. Zhou Jing couldn't help but say something else. He dares to leave, Xiao Qiao became anxious upon hearing this. Wouldn't it be annoying if that guy Li Jie really waited for her for a while? Xiao Jiao stood up and said casually, "Sister Jing, let's go out for a walk." After saying that, she also deliberately emphasized, "We are not going to see him." "Yeah, I know," Zhou Jing said cooperatively, but the corners of her mouth twitched, but she almost couldn't help laughing. This little disguise is really interesting. The two took the elevator downstairs, came to the parking lot, and got into a black Mercedes-Benz G together. "Xiao Jiao, where are we going?" "Let's go hang out on the Bund." Xiao Jiao's small duplex apartment is located near the Bund. Within 10 minutes, the Mercedes-Benz G stopped at the entrance of the Old Captain Youth Hotel. "Sister Jing, what are you doing here?" "I didn't say I wouldn't see him." Xiao Jiao complained on his lips, but he opened the door honestly and got out of the car. Seeing that she was still so stubborn, Zhou Jing felt funny in her heart, but she persuaded her, "We are all here, let's go up and sit for a while." "Okay," Xiao Jiao reluctantly nodded. He should be leaving at this time. After leaving Li Jie alone for an hour or two, she finally felt relieved. However, that guy Li Jie couldn't really wait impatiently and leave, right? If he dares to leave, she will never forgive him again. Xiao Jiao looked up at the hotel sign and walked in with Zhou Jing. As soon as she arrived at the hotel, she couldn't help but remember the first time she and Li Jie came to Shanghai. After saying hello to the waitress at the front desk, the two of them took the elevator to the bar on the 6th floor. Although today is the weekend, there are not many people in the bar, and there are still 2 or 3 empty tables on the outdoor viewing terrace. But where is Li Jie? Did this guy get impatient and leave, or did he not come at all? How could he do this? Xiao Jiao came to the viewing terrace and looked around, but did not find Li Jie, and suddenly became angry. "Let's find a place to sit down," Zhou Jing also looked around and said. She felt something was wrong. Many people were looking here intentionally or unintentionally, as if they were the center of attention. Xiao Jiao really wanted to turn around and leave, but after thinking about it he decided to sit for a while. 2 days later I found an empty table by the fence and sat down. However, before they could wave to the waiter took the initiative to bring a plate of delicate triangular cakes, candles, and red wine. Xiao Jiao was stunned for a moment and said, "Are you mistaken? We haven't ordered anything yet." The waiter smiled and said respectfully, "Miss, a young gentleman has booked this for you in advance." At this time, another well-dressed violinist came over and played soothing and melodious music next to him. A young gentleman? How could Xiao Jiao not guess that this was a surprise Li Jie had prepared for her? It seemed that he had not left. He knows how to pull off these tricks. As she said this, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. Xiao Jiao took out his mobile phone and sent a message to Li Jie. "Where are you? Come out quickly." As soon as the message was sent, the phone vibrated. "Li Jie, you eat the cake first." "Eat cake?" Xiao Jiao looked at the small cake on the table and vaguely guessed something. Did Li Jie hide a ring in the cake? Isn't that how things are played on TV? Thinking of this, she quickly picked up the fork and cut the small cake. Li Jie had just casually told her about getting married before, without even a formal proposal, so she agreed unsatisfactorily. But which girl doesn't want a romantic proposal? "Where's the ring?" Xiao Jiao took a fork and cut the cake into pieces, but he didn't find the ring. Not giving up, she even picked up a piece of cake and put it in her mouth to taste it. "This cake tastes good, but it's just an ordinary cake." "What on earth is this guy Li Jie doing?" Xiao Jiao muttered dissatisfiedly. "Is it really just to let her eat the cake?" Xiao Jiao didn't notice that Zhou Jing, who was sitting opposite her, seemed to see something suddenly and looked surprised. Then she nodded lightly, got up, and left quietly. By the time she realized it, Zhou Jing was gone. "Hey, where is Sister Jing?" Xiao Jiao quickly looked around for Zhou Jing, but at this moment she was suddenly blindfolded from behind. She was stunned for a moment, raised her hand, and hit the person behind her hard on the chest with her elbow. Hiss! The man grunted in pain. Xiao Bao, you want to murder your husband, right? Xiao Qiao turned around and looked at Li Jie, who was clutching his chest with a painful look on his face, and said funny and proudly, who asked you to sneak up on me? I thought it was Salang. In fact, she guessed in an instant that the person behind her was Li Jie. It was impossible for Zhou Jing to leave suddenly without even saying hello. The only person who could send her away so quietly was Li Jie. She just pretended not to know and took the opportunity to vent her anger on Li Jie. Little Qiao didn't know that Li Jie was also pretending. With her little strength, she couldn't be cruel enough to hit him hard. Li Jie rubbed his chest, pulled out the chair and sat down opposite Xiao Qiao, then waved to the waiter and asked him to take away the plate of small cakes that Xiao Qiao had cut into pieces. Xiao Qiao glanced at the plate of small cakes and suddenly became angry again. Do you find it particularly interesting to tease and bully me like this? She was still waiting for her because Li Jie was waiting for her, but she didn't expect that she would be tricked by him. Li Jie didn't say anything after hearing this. He just smiled, picked up the red wine on the table, and poured 2 glasses of wine. Come, let's have a drink together first. Seeing him like this, Xiao Qiao became even more angry. I won't drink. What do you want to do with me? Tell me quickly. If you don't tell me, I'll leave. Li Jie picked up a glass of wine and handed it to her with a smile. Drink the wine and you will be pleasantly surprised. Surprise, there was suspicion and expectation in Xiao Qiao's eyes. She hesitated for a moment before taking the wine, and then clinked the glasses with him. But just when she raised her head to drink, she suddenly stopped again, looked at Li Jie suspiciously and said, You're not going to drug me, are you? Li Jie was stunned when he heard this. What kind of brain circuit does the president have? Drug? Do I need to drug you? If I wanted to, I could just force it. He paused and said with a smile, It's more interesting this way. Humph, if you dare to force yourself, I will. What about you? Xiao Qiao originally wanted to say, if you dare to force yourself, I will cut you with a scissor. But seeing Li Jie staring at her threateningly, she couldn't continue. You know how to bully me. She muttered something softly, raised her head and drank down the red wine in the glass. Okay, I'll drink the wine, where's your surprise? Li Jie said with a smile, close your eyes. I told you to open them, so you open them again. Li Jie, if you tease me again, I'll leave immediately. Xiao Qiao stared at Li Jie and slowly closed his eyes after saying this. After waiting for a long time, seeing that Li Jie still didn't say anything, she couldn't help but said, Are you ready? Just wait. After waiting for another 2 or 3 minutes, almost 5 or 6 minutes, Li Jie said, Okay, you can open your eyes now. When Xiao Qiao heard this, she couldn't wait to open her eyes, but found that there was no surprise. Li Jie was still sitting opposite her. She thought that when she opened her eyes, she would see Li Jie taking out the ring, kneeling on one knee on the ground and proposing to her. Li Jie, you are teasing me again. Xiao Qiao felt lost and angry, stood up and was about to leave. She will never forgive this guy Li Jie again. But at this moment, people in the bar looked up at the sky above the bund in surprise, and some young girls even showed unconcealable envy. Wow, isn't this too romantic? Who is Xiao Qiao? This girl is so enviable. Xiao Qiao. When Xiao Qiao heard this, he subconsciously followed their gazes, and then he was stunned. In the sky above the bund, hundreds of planes kept changing various light arrays, including people wearing rings, kneeling to propose marriage, Cupid's arrow hitting the red heart, etc., and finally a declaration of love. Xiao Qiao, marry me. Xiao Qiao reached out to cover her mouth, and tears of excitement and joy could not help but burst out of her eyes. Not only people in the bar, but also all tourists on the Bund were attracted by this gorgeous and romantic drone light show. Many girls were dazzled and moved by this romantic proposal scene. No one has played this way in this era, and it really opened the eyes of many people that romance can be played like this. However, this romantic scene cost 1 or 2 million to create. If Li Jie had no money, how could he possibly move Xiao Qiao like this? As that sentence says, Xiaozhu doesn't like money, but every moment that touches her is made of money. Xiao Qiao. Hearing Li Jie's voice, Xiao Qiao came back to her senses, and then saw Li Jie kneeling in front of her, with a small box and a large bouquet of roses in his hand. Xiao Qiao, will you marry me? After he said these words, Xiao Qiao's figure and his proposal confession appeared on the LED screens of the buildings on both sides of the Bund. Xiao Qiao, marry me. Everyone in the bar shouted together enthusiastically, promise him, promise him, promise him. Xiao Qiao looked at Li Jie who was kneeling in front of him, tears streaming down his face uncontrollably, and he was so choked that he was speechless. The same scene in this dream finally came true. She nodded vigorously and said with a choked voice, I do. At this moment, Xiao Qiao forgot all the harm Li Jie had done to her before, and was only moved in her heart. Li Jie looked at Xiao Qiao who was so moved that he couldn't help but smile. This kind of romantic move technique worked best for Xiao Qiao, but not so well for Zhou Ziyu. Even if she was moved, it would only be for a moment, and then she would wake up and start thinking about reality. He opened the small box in his hand, and a huge diamond ring was revealed. The diamond shined brightly and charmingly under the light. This is a 13.14-carat diamond ring. Not only is it larger than Zhou Ziyu's 12-carat diamond ring, but it also has a great meaning. Li Jie took Xiao Qiao's fair and slender hand and put the diamond ring on the middle finger of her left hand. Xiao Qiao looked at the huge diamond ring in her hand and was a little dazzled until Li Jie stood up and handed her the large bouquet of roses. Only then did she react, hugged him suddenly, and cried excitedly again. Seeing that the proposal was successful, everyone in the audience burst into warm applause. Li Jie gently stroked Xiao Qiao's back, comforted her, and waited until her mood slowly calmed down before speaking. Qiao Bao, let's go. When Li Jie took Xiao Qiao's hand and left, many people in the bar also left while talking. In fact, the bar has been booked by Li Jie tonight, and all the guests are employees of Kudong Group. The proposal scene is so big tonight, this matter will soon become a hot topic. The youngest billionaire is about to get married, and I don't know how many young and beautiful girls will be disappointed by it. However, even if it causes a sensation on the internet for a while, as long as no live photos and specific details are circulated, the heat will soon pass. A top tycoon like Li Jie, who represents the corporate image, is not only an entrepreneur, but also a public figure. It is normal for people to talk about him or even scold him. Just like there are not many people complaining and talking about Brother Ma. But this kind of photos involving private life must not be circulated. In the elevator, Xiao Qiao regained consciousness after being moved. She turned to look at Li Jie and asked a little suspiciously, "Husband, if you were so kind to me tonight and made it so romantic, weren't you trying to coax me into giving in to that Joe Fox?" Did this Xiao Qiao suddenly become smarter? Li Jie had some thoughts and wanted to make Xiao Qiao happy and ask her to take a step back, and then coax Zhou Ziyu to ask her to take a step back as well, so that the matter could be solved. However, an old scumbag like him, no, he is a good man, how could he admit it now? Not only can't I admit it, but it's best not to ruin the atmosphere by mentioning Zhou Ziyu tonight. Qiao Bao, are you happy tonight? Happy, tonight is my happiest day. Xiao Qiao nodded vigorously, his eyes full of affection. That's enough. My preparation for so long has not been in vain. Li Jie didn't lie. He had been preparing for tonight's romantic proposal for a month or two, just to make Xiao Qiao happy and leave her with a beautiful memory. Tonight's proposal was recorded by a hidden camera. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 524. Husband, why don't we go home tonight and just stay here, Xiao Jiao said. On this special day tonight, she didn't want to see Zhou and the others again, she just wanted to spend it with Li Jie. At this moment, the elevator suddenly stopped. Xiao Jiao took a look and found that it was on the third floor, which was a bit surprising. Husband, you don't plan to go back either. Li Jie hugged her and walked out of the elevator, smiling and saying, well, let's relive our old dreams tonight. Reliving old dreams. We didn't do anything that night. We didn't do anything that night, but tonight we can do anything. No, you told me to relive the old dream, so we'll just do nothing and sleep in separate beds. This guy Li Jie, on such a romantic day tonight, only thinks about that little thing. He is really a jerk. A room of less than 20 square meters with 2 single beds. There are desks, TVs, air conditioners, small coffee tables, and sofas. There is also a vase with flowers on the round table. Xiao Jiao looked around the room, his eyes filled with memories. Husband, is this the room we stayed in when we first came here? Not only was the room still the same room, but all the decorations in the room were exactly the same as when they first arrived. Li Jie said with a smile, I had this room thoroughly cleaned, and the quilts and sheets were replaced with new ones. Xiao Jiao hummed slightly, then came back to his senses and looked at Li Jie, his eyes a little complicated. If only this was really the first time we came here. If she could turn back time, she would definitely not let Zhou take advantage of her. Xiao Jiao can accept Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi, but he just can't accept Zhou. She hugged Li Jie tightly from behind. Husband, can you promise me something? What's up? This romance tonight only belongs to me. You can't do the same thing to other girls again, especially Fox that week. Okay, I promise you, Li Jie said without hesitation. He is not one of those scumbags, how could he coax girls into using the same tricks? Just like the big black bull who likes to wholesale heart-shaped stones, he overturns his business after playing too many tricks. This guy completely forgot about it. He played the routine of setting off fireworks several times. Qiao Bao, I was too indulgent in the past and hurt you many times, but I promise that I will try my best to provoke as few girls as possible in the future, and I will never bring anyone into my home again. Xiao Jiao was quite moved at first, but the more he listened, the more he felt something was wrong. Try your best? What do you mean, try your best? You guys still want to love me, right? Do you know that I don't dare to wear green clothes anymore? All green clothes look like. Li Jie's mouth twitched when he heard this, and he almost lost control of his expression. This Xiao Jiao's talent for comedy is so strong. Qiao Bao, actually you look really good in a green skirt. Hey, Li Jie, what did you say? Are you looking for death? Xiao Jiao's brain circuit is a little different from normal people. According to a normal girl's mind, no matter how rich her boyfriend is, it will be difficult for him to accept his frequent cheating. But Xiao Jiao didn't care too much about the cheating, and she cared more about her status in Li Jie's heart. She is most hostile to Zhou because she is worried that his status in Li Jie's heart will surpass hers. As long as Li Jie still likes her the most, everything else can be tolerated. This is why Li Jie likes Xiao Jiao the most. Who wouldn't like such a silly, no, such a generous girlfriend? Stupid is not a derogatory connotation. Girls are more likely to be hurt if they are stupider. Compared to smart girlfriends, most boys still prefer a second-rate girlfriend. Silly ones are easier to fool. Which man wants to be controlled by a woman? Even though Joziu is very indulgent towards Li Jie now, if she really gets the upper hand, she will never be as generous as Xiao Jiao. People's thoughts will change. In fact, not only Joziu, but also Lu Kaiu and Shen Xinyi. Xiao Jiao went to the bathroom to take a shower. Li Jie took off his coat, lay on the single bed and watched TV out of boredom. He originally wanted to take a bath with Xiao Jiao, so that he could cancel the water resource contract. Xiao Jiao disagreed, saying she was afraid that he would cause trouble. But what harm can he do, what bad thoughts can he have? Li Jie took the remote control and changed the channel. He found something to watch, so he switched back to the movie channel and watched an old movie. Waiting alone. Xiao Jiao took a long time to take a bath. He came out of the bathroom after more than half an hour. She put on a white bathrobe and wiped her wet hair with a towel. Seeing Li Jie watching TV, she smiled and said, "Why are you so honest and don't chat with those little vixens outside?" "I said I would only stay with you tonight." Li Jie got up from the bed and took out the hair dryer from the drawer. "Let me help you dry your hair." Xiao Qing hummed, sat down on the other single bed, and asked Li Jie to help her dry her hair. Li Jie helped Xiao Jiao blow dry her hair for a while. When her hair was almost dry, he turned off the hair dryer, leaned down and buried his head in her hair. "Honey, what are you doing?" Xiao Jiao felt a wet sucking coming from his neck, which was itchy. "Didn't I say, let's relive old dreams?" Xiao Jiao thought for a while, and it seemed that this paragraph happened that time. "Hey, why are you adding to the drama, ugh?" Li Jie didn't go too far. He just kissed Xiao Jiao for a while and then stopped. Xiao Jiao's cheeks were flushed, her eyes were blurry and watery, and she hit him with an angry smile. "Who asked you to join the show without permission?" "I am your man and I have the right to add drama," Li Jie said with a smile. "Okay, go back to your bed quickly." Xiao Jiao pushed him hard. "How about we sleep together? I will hold you and do nothing. Just hug, then touch and kiss, and then, you will succeed, right?" "Xiao Jiao looked like I've seen through you a long time ago." Li Jie didn't know what to say for a moment. Why did this Xiao Jiao say all his lines? What does this tell him? "Jiao Bao, I want to tell you a story." "You can talk about it on that bed." Xiao Jiao was not fooled at all. Li Jie hugged her tightly and said, "I had a dream a few days ago. I dreamed of the two of us." "Just the two of us?" Xiao Jiao interrupted him. "Didn't you dream about that Joe Fox?" Li Jie did not answer and continued, "I dreamed that the two of us met in another way." He told Xiao Jiao the second dream within the dream. Xiao Jiao didn't pay much attention at first, making jokes from time to time, but the more he listened, the more focused he became, and the more he listened, the more silent he became. After Li Jie finished speaking, she was silent for a while, then sighed quietly, "It would be great if this wasn't a dream." Li Jie didn't speak, lowered his head and kissed her tender neck again, moving down little by little. "Husband," Xiao Jiao murmured in a coquettish voice. "I'll just kiss you." "Just a kiss?" "Well, it's just a kiss, I promise not to do anything else." Platinum Bay Mansion. In the bedroom, Joziu picked up the remote control and turned off the prenatal education guide disc that was playing. Tonight, for some reason, she felt upset. She stretched out her hand to touch her flat belly and whispered to herself, "Your father doesn't know what he's doing. He's not back so late." In fact, at 4-5 weeks of pregnancy, the fetus has not yet formed and is in an embryonic state. She is completely talking to the air. Beep. At this time, the mobile phone placed aside vibrated. Joziu came back to her senses, picked up her phone and took a look, and found that it was an interesting chat message sent by Zhu Qinlin. "Tsuyu, what's going on between you and Mr. Li? You'd better check your circle of friends quickly." Joziu was stunned for a moment and quickly opened the circle of friends. I saw a socialite with whom she was having trouble posting a new video. This is so romantic, it's so enviable. When the video opens, it shows the scenery of the Bund passing by. Then the camera is pointed at the sky. Hundreds of drones take off at the same time, using the night sky as a curtain to perform a proposal light show. Wearing a ring, kneeling down to propose, Cupid's arrow hitting the heart. When Josiah watched the video, his expression suddenly changed, and he had a very bad feeling in his heart. The next moment, the drone array was changing again, forming a confessional statement. Xiaojiao, marry me. Josiah stared at the phone screen tightly, biting her lips until they turned white. Xiaojiao had a dream. She dreamed that she was like the dream Li Jie said. She met Li Jie in another way. He was not as outstanding and mature as he is now. He was just an ordinary student, shy and not good at words. He didn't make much money even if he wrote books online, but he was more simple and dedicated. There was no intervention from Josiah between the two, and their love affair was plain and sweet. Sure enough, that Joe Fox came here just for money. Otherwise, if Li Jie had become ordinary, why wouldn't she show up? Suddenly, Xiaojiao felt a tightness in her chest, and then woke up. As soon as she opened her eyes, she found Li Jie pressing heavily on her. This guy bullied her for most of the night and even fought for her bed. There were two beds, but he insisted on squeezing together with her. Xiaojiao reached out and wanted to push Li Jie away, but hesitated the moment she touched him. Forget it, let this guy sleep a little longer. He had a hard time last night too. Xiaojiao bit her lip lightly and looked at Li Jie's sleeping face. Even in his sleep, he was still so calm and composed, making people feel at ease just by looking at him. When the Li Jie in the dream was in his 20s, he was very young and naive. Thinking of this, Xiaojiao felt something in her heart, as if she had some realization. The Li Jie in the dream also matured after many years, but he grew up in the company of her. Although the dream became blurry after waking up, I still vaguely remembered that she seemed to have helped Li Jie a lot. She is a reader of his novels, helping him with suggestions, revising his manuscripts, cheering him on, and being his spiritual support. But her Li Jie seemed to be picked up for nothing. He was very mature from the beginning and took care of her like a father. She was also used to Li Jie's care and protection, relying on him like a daughter, but she didn't do anything for him. No, she can't go on like this anymore, she has to grow up. Even if I can't help Li Jie with his career, she must be a qualified wife, take good care of the family, and be his backing and spiritual support. Just like the little Joe in the dream. Beep beep. The mobile phone on the bedside suddenly vibrated. Xiaojiao came back from his thoughts, and Li Jie was also woken up. He subconsciously stretched, but Xiaojiao yelled, "Oh!" Only then did Li Jie notice Xiaojiao, who was pressed beneath him. "Jiao Bao, did I crush you? You know you're crushing me, why don't you get up quickly?" Xiaojiao pushed him hard. Her body was numb from his pressure. Li Jie got up from her with a smile and picked up the mobile phone on the bedside. "This bed belongs to him." Xiaojiao's bed was a little dirty from the toss last night. After looking at the caller ID, Li Jie's eyes froze. The call was from Ruanjing. She followed Wang's Heining and would not call him unless it was something urgent. "Xiaojing, what's wrong?" After chatting for a few words, Li Jie hung up the phone and said to Xiaojiao, "Jiao Bao, I have to leave first because I have something to do. I'll ask Zhou Jing to pick you up later." "Husband, what's wrong?" "What happened?" Xiaojiao couldn't help but ask. Li Jie looked at her, hesitated and said, "Ruanjing called to say that Wang's Heining is going to give birth. I have to go there quickly." "Wang's Heining is about to give birth?" Xiaojiao was stunned when he heard this, with mixed feelings in his heart. She and Li Jie are not married yet, but he even has children. "Okay, I'm leaving. Li Jie hugged her comfortingly and prepared to leave. Xiao Jiao held him back. Hubby, I'll go with you. After a pause, she added, don't worry, I won't be jealous or have a bad temper. After hearing what she said, Li Jie had no choice but to nod. Okay, let's go together. After getting dressed, the two left the hotel together. Qiao Bao, we will also have children in the future. As Li Jie said this, he couldn't help but think of that dream again. In the dream, he and Xiao Qiao were both in their 30s but had no children yet. Xiao Qiao snorted slightly, and then said, husband, I may not be able to treat you and other people's children as my own, but I will try my best to be nice to her. Li Jie was stunned and looked at her up and down in disbelief. Isn't this Xiao Qiao's generosity a bit too much? Husband, what's wrong? Xiao Qiao felt a little uncomfortable when he saw her. Qiao Bao, you don't have to be like this, as long as you look passable on the surface. No, I am the official palace, I have to be tolerant, Xiao Qiao said with a smile and shook his head. Husband, even though I'm not qualified yet, I will learn to be a good wife. Li Jie looked at Xiao Qiao, feeling indescribably moved and distressed. He sighed softly in his heart, hugged her and continued to walk out of the hotel. Qiao Bao, you don't need to change anything, I like you just the way you are now. He made up his mind that he could no longer coax Xiao Qiao to give in. If he hurt her again, he would be nothing. Let's think of another way. When Li Jie and Xiao Qiao arrived at the private obstetrics hospital in Suyi, they saw Ruanjing, Zhou Ziyu and Shen Xinyi standing guard outside the delivery room. Vice President Wu and the middle-aged female head nurse were also accompanying them. The environment of this private hospital is excellent. It is more like a five-star hotel than a hospital. The services and medical conditions are also the best, with hotel-style services and meticulous care for customers. The medical staff are all from major tertiary hospitals in Shanghai, and there is also an expert advisory group. There really is no downside other than the price. Seeing Li Jie's arrival, Vice President Wu and others stood up from their chairs. Mr. Li, you are here. Dean Wu, head nurse Song, Li Jie said hello to Vice President Wu and the head nurse, and then asked immediately. How is she, Wang's Haining, doing now? I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 525. The female nurse said, Mr. Li, don't worry. Ms. Wang's physical condition is very good. The baby is of normal size and the fetal position is correct. There will basically be no problems. Li Jie listened and nodded. In fact, he already knew about Wang's Haining's physical condition, otherwise he wouldn't be so calm. Shen Xinyi said, Husband, Kai went to the company early in the morning. At almost 9 o'clock in the morning, Haining suddenly had a stomachache. Ziyu and I took her to the hospital together. She said and glanced at Zhou Ziyu. Zhou Ziyu's eyes fell on Xiao Qiao next to Li Jie, especially the huge diamond ring on her left middle finger. Xiao Qiao smiled faintly at her, acting like a royal official. Noticing their eye contact, Li Jie shook his head inwardly. The two of them will probably fight for the rest of their lives. Tsuyu, Xinyi, you two should go back. I'll be fine here. Husband, how about we wait together with you, Shen Xinyi said. No need, you two go and do your work. Aren't your crew still going to work? The small-cost online drama Shen Xinyi invested in has entered a critical period of filming, and she has a lot to do. Okay, let's go then. After hearing what Li Jie said, Shen Xian didn't insist anymore. Zhou Ziyu didn't say anything, just nodded to Li Jie, and left with Shen Xinyi and their bodyguards. The female head nurse said, Mr. Li, please sit down and wait. Miss Wang is a first-time laborer, so the time may be longer. The duration of childbirth for a first-time mother is more than 10 hours, and it may take a day or two for slow mothers. Of course, there are also extremely fast ones. The physical condition of the pregnant woman and the fetus are all related. Li Jie and Xiao Jiao sat down on the sofa in the waiting area, accompanied by Vice President Wu and the head nurse. The young and beautiful nurse also brought some cups of coffee. Li Jie, Vice President Wu and the head nurse were chatting with each other while waiting a little anxiously. Xiao Jiao saw that he was a little upset and comforted him. "Husband, don't worry, Zhaining and the child will be fine." Li Jie smiled at her. He was not worried that something would happen to Wang Zhaining and the child. In such a top-notch private hospital, there was a team of experts to attend the birth, so the probability of an accident was basically zero. It's just that this is his first time accompanying a childbirth and he has little experience, so he will inevitably feel a little nervous and uneasy. Vice President Wu and the female head nurse looked at each other secretly. They had seen many rich people with multiple lovers, but it was too rare for lovers to get along so harmoniously. This girl named Xiao Jiao is obviously Mr. Li's real girlfriend. When her lover gives birth to a child, she doesn't get angry or get into trouble, but she even worries about the safety of her lover, mother, and daughter. Isn't this too generous? Dean Wu, can I go in and take a look? Li Jie turned to Vice President Wu and said. Vice President Wu nodded and said, "Of course, our hospital adheres to the customer-oriented service concept. Not only does it allow family members to accompany the child during the birth, there are also beds in the delivery room for family members to rest. Some rich people are more taboo about entering the delivery room because they think it will affect their luck." He didn't know if Li Jie had this taboo, so he didn't take the initiative to mention it. "Honey, I'll go in with you." Xiao Jiao stood up after Li Jie. "No, you'd better wait here for me." Li Jie paused and then said, "You're not pregnant yet, so don't be afraid of giving birth first." Xiao Jiao said unconvinced, "How could I be afraid? I am very brave." Brave? This Jiao has the nerve to say he is brave even though he is a coward? She was afraid of the pain of even getting an injection, let alone giving birth. Before entering the delivery room, you must disinfect and put on sterile isolation gown. After Li Jie walked into the delivery room accompanied by the female head nurse, she found that the delivery room was very large. Wang Zhaining was lying on the delivery bed with sweat on her forehead and a slightly painful expression. 5 or 6 female doctors and nurses were surrounding her. "Brother Jie, you're here." Seeing Li Jie coming, Wang Zhaining's face showed a look of surprise, and the pain seemed to have eased. Li Jie came to Wang Zhaining, held her hand, and said with some distress, "It hurts, doesn't it?" Wang Zhaining endured the pain and smiled and shook her head. "Fortunately, it's not particularly painful now." She had just opened her finger and her water had not broken yet. Li Jie turned to the doctor and nurse and asked, "In her case, it should be painless, right?" A female doctor in her 40s explained, "The injection is painless. Our hospital's labor analgesia technology is top-notch in the country, and intravenous injection has basically no side effects. However, Ms. Wang is worried that it will affect the child and refuses to give it." After Li Jie heard this, he immediately said, "It won't hurt." "Brother Jie," Wang Zhaining said urgently, "it doesn't matter if it hurts a little, but our child can't be put at any risk, so it's better not to fight." Li Jie looked at her and said, "Children are very important, but you are more important. You can't just care about your children and not yourself. There's no need to suffer that pain when there are ways to alleviate the pain." The female doctor also persuaded, "Ms. Wang, you really don't need to worry too much. The dose of painless injection anesthesia is much smaller than that of cesarean section. Such a small dose has almost no chance of entering the child's body, let alone affecting the health of the child's intelligence." Wang Zhaining didn't pay attention to what the female doctor said. She just looked at Li Jie with moved eyes. "Well, Brother Jie, I listen to you." After the painless injection, about 5 minutes later, Wang Zhaining was obviously no longer in pain. After about 10 minutes, she looked very relaxed. Li Jie sat beside the bed and stayed with her. 2 or 3 hours passed like this, and Wang Haining ate some nutritious meals at noon to replenish her physical strength. When it was almost 1 p.m., Wang Haining showed a slightly painful look, even though she was still hanging without pain. The middle-aged female doctor said in a deep voice, "The amniotic water has broken and I'm about to give birth. It's time to start pushing." The female head nurse glanced at Li Jie and said, "Mr. Li, why don't you wait outside?" Li Jie nodded and did not insist on staying. He can't help a woman give birth to a baby, so don't make trouble here. He squeezed Wang Haining's hand tightly and said, "Xiaoning, come on, I'll be right outside." Wang Haining looked at him and nodded vigorously. The moment he walked out of the delivery room, Li Jie heard Wang Haining behind him groaning in pain. He paused and opened the door and went out. Outside the delivery room, Xiao Qiao was walking around anxiously, looking at the closed door of the delivery room from time to time. Those who didn't know thought she was a relative of the mother, Wang Haining. Who would have thought that the two were love rivals? "Husband, how's the situation inside?" Seeing Li Jie open the door and come out, Xiao Qiao hurriedly greeted him. Li Jie spent 2 or 3 hours waiting outside for 2 or 3 hours. "The situation is going very well. I'm giving birth now, and it won't be long," Li Jie said. Xiao Qiao breathed a sigh of relief. It was finally over. "It's too slow to give birth. I thought it would be very slow. It's not like what's shown on TV." The baby was born very quickly as soon as he entered the delivery room. Li Jie rubbed her head funnily. "Can you take what is shown on TV seriously?" He paused and then continued, "The first birth is relatively slow. It takes more than 10 hours on average. If it is difficult to deliver, it will take even 1 or 2 days. 1 or 2 days. How uncomfortable it must be for such a long time." Xiao Qiao had a look of fear in his eyes. She thought for a while and asked, "Husband, is she, Wang Haining, in pain?" Xiao Qiao asked curiously again. She thought Wang Haining was crying in pain in the delivery room, screaming so loud that her lungs were broken. Just now, she was curiously leaning on the door of the delivery room and listening. Fortunately, the painless injections were applied, so it didn't hurt much. But now that I'm giving birth, the painless injections have stopped, so there will be some pain. There are also painless injections. Xiao Qiao immediately felt relieved after hearing this. When she gives birth to her baby, she will definitely get painless injections. She doesn't want to live with the pain. Li Jie glanced at her and said, "Xiao Qiao, if you are afraid of pain or waiting for a long time, you can choose to have a cesarean section. 1 hour is enough for a cesarean section. You won't feel any pain under anesthesia." "Cesarean section?" Xiao Qiao's expression changed. "No, I won't do it. I will never have a cesarean section." The thought of having to cut her stomach made her unspeakably frightened. Seeing her like this, Li Jie smiled inwardly. What a coward! In fact, he was just teasing Xiao Qiao by talking about cesarean section. He would not let Xiao Qiao and the others perform a cesarean section unless it was absolutely necessary. Only when a bird breaks out of its shell can it grow up healthily, and the same goes for people. A natural vaginal birth is better than a cesarean section. Besides, cesarean section is also more harmful to the body of pregnant women. Why don't you men have to have children, but us girls have to suffer this? It's really unfair, Xiao Qiao suddenly said angrily. Li Jie couldn't help but smile again after hearing this. Unfair. It is very painful for women to give birth, but relatively speaking, women in China are much less stressed than men. Many men really don't have the conditions to marry a wife, but most women are too selective to marry. If you treat your international friends like you do, without asking for betrothal gifts, a house or a car, just for love, which woman will not be able to get married? Li Jie remembered a piece of news he had seen. A young girl returned from a big city to her rural hometown to celebrate the new year. As a result, more than 20 young men lined up to go on a blind date. A young man arrived late because he was riding an electric bicycle, and he didn't even look at the little girl. By the way, Xiao Bao, have you eaten? No, I want to wait for you to eat together. Xiao Qiao shook his head lightly. Li Jie waved to the little nurse waiting aside and ordered 2 client meals. He hasn't eaten yet, but when he was feeding Wang's Haining just now, he ate the remaining nutritious meal for her. Soon, the little nurse brought 2 meals and 5 or 6 side dishes. Not only were they delicious, but also nutritionally balanced, and the taste was no worse than those in a 5-star hotel. But such good services are all paid for. Just giving Wang's Haining a normal berth cost hundreds of thousands. Xiao Qiao's morning, no, it's because he didn't eat much last night. He was really hungry. He picked up vegetables frequently and ate them very deliciously. Li Jie took a few symbolic bites and then passed his share of the meal to her. Wang's Haining was still suffering in the delivery room, and he was not in the mood to eat. Before Xiao Qiao finished her meal, the door of the delivery room was pushed open, and the female doctor in her 40s walked out together with a young female nurse. Li Jie quickly stood up, and Xiao Qiao also put down his lunchbox and stood up immediately. Mr. Li, congratulations, you are blessed with a daughter. Your mother and daughter are safe, the female doctor said with a smile. Li Jie shook her hand vigorously and said, Director Chen, thank you for your hard work. He felt a little excited and a little complicated. From today on, he is also a father. Li Jie was going to disinfect and change isolation gowns with the nurse, and then go into the delivery room to see Wang's Haining and her daughter. Xiao Qiao stopped him and said, Hubby, can I go in with you? The moment she heard that Wang's Haining was pregnant, she couldn't help but feel sour in her heart, but it passed quickly. Li Jie turned around, smiled and nodded to her, okay. In the delivery room, Wang's Haining looked a little tired on the delivery bed. A female doctor in her 30s was telling her what to pay attention to after giving birth. A middle-aged female nurse was holding a child, and 2 young female nurses were surrounding her. Wang's Haining kept looking at the child while listening to the doctor's instructions. The 2 young nurses looked at the child with envy in their eyes. This child is really lucky. He was born into a billionaire family and is destined to enjoy endless glory and wealth. Hearing the sound of the door opening and seeing Li Jie come in, Wang's Haining suddenly became happy, but after looking at Xiao Qiao behind him, the joy faded. Brother Jie, our child is healthy. The female doctor on the side smiled and said, Mr. Li, your daughter was born at full term, weighing 6.3 pounds, and is very healthy. After saying that, she looked at Wang's Haining again. Ms. Wang's physical condition is very good. The delivery was very smooth. It only took less than half an hour. I believe that the postpartum recovery will be very fast. Wang's Haining has practiced dancing since she was a child and has excellent physical fitness. In addition, she is young and is in the best childbearing age in her 20s. Giving birth will cause very little harm to the body. Haining, thank you for your hard work. Li Jie reached out and touched Wang's Haining's head. Wang's Haining smiled and shook her head, I'm not working hard, Brother Jie, please take a look at our child. Li Jie took the child from the arms of a middle-aged female nurse and found that the child's skin was wrinkled, black and red, and looked a bit ugly. She had her eyes closed as if she was asleep, and her little mouth was pursed. A bit ugly, but cute. This is his daughter. He suddenly felt a blood connection in his heart. Li Jie actually doesn't like children. When he sees other people's children, he never feels particularly fond of them, but when he holds his own daughter, he feels completely different. Even though he was ugly when he was born, he still thinks he is cute. It's better to have your own children. It's hard to understand the kind of men who raise children for others. Who gives them the courage to do things that even Dorgan can't handle? Brother Jie, look at her too. Wang's Haining looked at the child in Li Jie's arms with eyes full of warmth and love. She had already seen the child just now, but she couldn't get enough of it. Li Jie held the child in front of Wang's Haining, and Wang's Haining gently touched the child's little face. Feeling her touch, the child opened his eyes and smiled at her. Brother Jie, have you seen it? She smiled at me, Wang's Haining said with surprise and excitement. Yeah, Li Jie smiled and nodded. Xiao Qiao on the side looked at the warm scene of this family of three, and couldn't help but feel sad again, and suddenly had an urge to have a child. Haining, can I hug the child? Wang's Haining glanced at her, smiled and nodded, of course. She might be wary of Zhou Ziyu, but she wasn't too wary of Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao carefully took the child from Li Jie's arms and looked at it carefully. Why is this kid so? She didn't say that ugly word. Xiao Qiao subconsciously looked at Li Jie and Wang's Haining. She felt that this child looked nothing like them. Wang's Haining is so beautiful, why did she give birth to a child like this? Li Jie glanced at her and said with a smile, you were like her when you were first born. You were wrinkled and a bit unsightly, but after a few days you will become white and very cute. Wang's Haining is so fair and beautiful, the daughter she gives birth to will definitely be particularly fair and cute, as long as she doesn't follow him. Li Jie is a bit dark. I was like this when I was born, Xiao Qiao looked full of doubt. No way, I must have been very beautiful and cute even when I was born. Xiao Qiao looked at the child for a while, and then Li Jie asked the nurse to take the child away and send it to the exclusive baby care room. Then he said to Xiao Qiao, Qiao Bao, you and Ruanjing go to Minister Shen Base Han, to get red envelopes and wedding candies, and share them with the doctors and nurses who deliver the baby. This guy is really scumbag. His lover gives birth to a child, and he asks his real girlfriend to help him hand out red envelopes and wedding candies. Is this something humans do? I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 526. Li Jie sent Xiao Qiao away and asked the doctors and nurses to go out. Then he sat down by the bed and held Wang's Haining's hand. Xiaoning, don't worry, there is no illegitimate child in my heart. No matter whether this child's surname is Li or Wang, she is my daughter, Li Jie. Wang's Haining said and nodded vigorously. If Zhou Ziyu heard what Li Jie said, he would definitely not believe it, and Xiao Qiao would also be half convinced, but Wang's Haining completely believed it. She believed that Li Jie would not lie to her. Brother Jie, our daughter doesn't have a name yet. Which name do you like? Li Jie said with a smile. During this time, Li Jie and Wang's Haining discussed giving their children 5 or 6 names, Junting, Jinjia, Baibei. However, Wang's Haining was always hesitant. Wang's Haining hesitated for a while and said, husband, it's up to you to decide. She had a little difficulty choosing. She thought all these names sounded good. Li Jie thought for a while and said, how about calling me Junting, Wang Junting? Wang's Haining smiled and nodded, okay, let's call her Wang Junting. After resting for a while in the delivery room, Wang's Haining was sent to the ward by the nurse. This private hospital has more than 100 wards, all of which are single rooms. The room fee costs more than 2,000 yuan a day, and the total cost of all kinds of expenses costs 4,000 to 5,000 yuan a day. Although it is very expensive, the accommodation conditions are also excellent, even better than a 5-star hotel. There are dedicated nurses to provide 24-hour care, and doctors patrol the wards at night. Li Jie booked a VIP room for Wang's Haining, and the room rate for one night was 5,000 to 6,000, which was comparable to an ordinary presidential suite in a 5-star hotel. Wang's Haining glanced at Li Jie, who was sitting on the sofa playing with his laptop. Hubby, why don't you go get busy soon? Ruanjing will be with me. There is no shortage of anything here, and you don't have to worry about me. This family-style standard private ward has everything, and mothers only need to bring their bags to check in. Li Jie put down the computer and said, I'll stay here with you tonight. No matter how busy I am, I can still spare 2 or 3 days to spend with you. Wang Zhining hummed, looking at Li Jie with tender eyes. At this time, Xiao Jiao and Ruanjing opened the door and walked in together, dragging a small suitcase in their hands. After giving out red envelopes and wedding candies to the doctors and nurses, Xiao Jiao was ordered by Li Jie to go back to the apartment with Ruanjing to pack her things. Ruanjing went back to help Wang Zhining pack some commonly used items, while Xiao Jiao went to help Li Jie get a change of clothes. Jiao Bao, thank you for your hard work. Li Jie stood up and came to Xiao Jiao, took the suitcase from her hand, and then hugged her. Okay, you go back and rest. After hearing the first half of Li Jie's words, Xiao Jiao felt that her hard work was not in vain, but after hearing the second half of his words, her mood suddenly worsened. What does this guy Li Jie mean? You have to drive her away after you've finished using her, right? Then I'm leaving, she said reluctantly. Well, let's go back. This big pig's hooves, Xiao Jiao muttered in his heart before turning around and leaving. Li Jie stopped her again, wait a minute, I'll see you off. He kept Xiao Jiao out of the hospital building, and when she was about to get in the car, he suddenly hugged her again. Jiao Bao, thank you today. Thank me for what? Xiao Jiao was stunned for a moment and said. Thank you for being so generous and accommodating. There are very few girls who can do what Xiao Jiao is like. Even if some women can tolerate the mistress on the surface, in their hearts they want to stab the mistress with scissors. But Li Jie could see that Xiao Jiao was not pretending. It was really rare to be able to tolerate Wang Zhining and her children. After hearing what he said, Xiao Jiao's mood suddenly improved again. You know me now, right? That Joe Fox won't tolerate you like I do. She never forgets to target Zhou Ziyu. Okay, go back, Li Jie let her go with a smile. Xiao Jiao did not leave immediately, but looked at him and said, Husband, let's have a child too. She just went to the baby nursery to see the child for a while, and looking at the cute sleeping child, she wanted to have a child more and more. A child belonging to her and Li Jie. Okay, let's work harder in the future. It was around 8 o'clock in the evening, in a terraced western restaurant with a beautiful view on the Bund. Zhou Ziyu was playing with the wine glass in his hand while looking at the brightly lit Bund in a daze. Zhou Qing, who was sitting opposite her, couldn't help but say, Xiao, you have to think of a way quickly. Xiaoji has already proposed to that Xiao Jiao. If you don't find a way, the two of them will really have to get the certificate. Zhou Ziyu came back to her senses and glanced at her, but said nothing. She just drank the grape juice in the cup. Seeing her like this, Zhou Qing suddenly became more anxious. I've told you that you can't be soft-hearted, but you just don't listen. Otherwise, how could you not be able to compete with that Xiao Jiao with your means? Do you know that once Xiao Jie marries that Xiao Jiao, you will really become the third party who destroys other people's families? After learning that Zhou Ziyu was pregnant, Zhou Qing was really excited. She was looking forward to being the mother-in-law of a top rich man. Suddenly she heard that Li Jie had proposed to Xiao Jiao in a high-profile way. Her mood was like riding a roller coaster. Then he hit rock bottom. How excited I was before, it's so hard to accept now. Zhou Ziyu was silent for a while and smiled to himself, but I am the third party. How can you call this a third party? Li Jie is not married, so how can he call him a third party? This is called competition. Zhou Qing raised her voice with disapproval in her eyes. As long as you win the competition and marry Xiaoji, the others will be called the third party. Xiao, don't be stupid. There is nothing right or wrong in this world. Whoever wins is right. Don't say that you are not a third party. Even if you are really a third party who intervenes and destroys other people's families, As long as you win the fight, who will dare to look down on you? They will only envy you and fawn over you. Only if you fail will you be looked down upon by others. At this point, Zhou Qing suddenly stood up. No, I'll help you talk to Xiaojie. Are you and the baby in your belly still no match for that little Zhou? I just don't understand. Which little Zhou is better? Mom, please stop causing trouble for me. Zhou Ziyu also stood up and stopped her. She knew very well that Li Jie was not someone who would be easily influenced by others. If Zhou Qing rushed over so rashly, not only would nothing be changed, but it would only arouse Li Jie's resentment. Zhou Qing was stunned for a moment, then said with regret, "Why do you mean I'm causing trouble for you? Xiao, I'm helping you, or are you just giving up and accepting your fate?" A beautiful woman like Zhou Ziyu is already eye-catching. When Zhou Qing raised her voice, the surrounding customers looked over one after another. Those who were close could faintly hear the child in her belly and looked at Zhou Ziyu. His eyes were full of surprise. Zhou Ziyu looked around, then pulled Zhou Qing to sit down again. "Mom, please keep your voice down. What if he doesn't accept his fate? In fact, he has already made his choice, but I thought..." She thought that Li Jie might reconsider after having a child, but she didn't expect that he would still choose Xiao Jiao so firmly. This really hurt her. "Xiao, you really disappoint me." Seeing that Zhou Ziyu really wanted to give up, Zhou Qing's face was filled with disappointment and unwillingness. If Zhou Ziyu is just Li Jie's lover, then her identity as mother-in-law is also false, and she has no shame to show off. Only when Zhou Ziyu and Li Jie obtain the certificates can her identity as mother-in-law be truly confirmed. The mother-in-law of a billionaire, Zhou Qing found it hard to accept the thought of losing her reputation. But Zhou Ziyu smiled and said, "Mom, I figured it out. It doesn't matter even if I can't get the status, as long as the child can get the status." She had been socializing with the outside world as Li Jie's girlfriend, but Li Jie suddenly proposed to Xiao Jiao in such a high-profile way, which made the entire upper class know about it, which undoubtedly put her in a very embarrassing situation. The moment she saw the video, Zhou Ziyu felt a little resentful towards Li Jie, but she soon sobered up. She shouldn't resent Li Jie, and she has no right to resent him. Li Jie was very kind to her. He gave her whatever she asked and never refused her request. Without him, she wouldn't have become a best-selling author. Besides, she said from the beginning that she was only a lover. This can't be blamed on Li Jie. If it is to be blamed, it can only be blamed on her being too greedy. After hearing her words, Zhou Qing sighed deeply, shook her head and said, "Xiao, you will definitely regret it in the future. Love is unreliable. If you can't win even if you get pregnant now, wait until Li Jie and that Xiao Jiao is married, and you have no chance." After receiving the certificate, do you think she will divorce Li Jie and give her to you? If it were you, would you let her? After Zhou Ziyu listened, he was silent for a while and said, "Mom, I believe him. Li Jie promised to marry her, and she believed he would do it. There was no way he would lie to her." "You." Zhou Qing sighed again, completely disappointed. She made up her mind to talk to Li Jie. The daughter accepted her fate, but her mother would not accept her fate. How can a man's promise be reliable? Li Jie stayed with Wang Haining in the hospital for 3 days. During the day, he went to the company to stay for a while. The rest of the time he worked in the hospital without any major work. At night, he also slept on the sofa bed next to her. It wasn't until the 4th day that he stopped accompanying her at night and handed over the job of staying overnight to Ruan Zheng. However, he still came to the hospital every day to stay with Wang Haining for a long time. Wang Haining's body recovered very quickly. She could get out of bed and move around soon after giving birth, and she could walk around indoors the next day. She walks moderately for a while every day to promote her body's recovery. Wang Haining also plans to return to Li Jie after her confinement period and continue to be his personal secretary. Zhang Wenjun and Yu Xiangzi are facing the risk of losing their jobs. Xiao Junting is also very healthy. Over the past few days, the wrinkles on her body have gradually reduced and her skin has gradually become smoother. Wang Zhaining, apart from moving her body for a while every day, spends most of her time with her child. Looking at the child's facial features, Li Jie felt that his daughter looked more like Wang Zhaining, which made him feel at ease. It wouldn't look good if his daughter looked like him. However, Li Jie began to worry about his daughter's future again, fearing that she would be deceived by a scumbag when she grew up. There are too many scumbags in this world, and good men like him are too rare. Xiao Jiao seems to like Xiao Junting very much. He comes to see her every day, and even told Li Jie that she would be the child's godmother. Li Jie smiled and teased her, "Why don't you just be my sister?" Xiao Jiao was stunned for a moment, and when she realized what she was doing, she threw herself at Li Jie and hit him hard. Li Jie is too bad. He tricked her into shouting, instead of saying anything, and even made fun of her about it. With children as a bond, the relationship between Xiao Jiao and Wang Zhaining has also improved. When they play with the children together, they really look like sisters. However, Li Jie knew that this harmony was only temporary. When Xiao Jiao is still young, her ideas are relatively simple. In 2 or 3 years, when she becomes more mature and has children, she will have another idea. Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi also came to the hospital to see Wang Zhaining and Xiao Junting 2 or 3 times, and they also like Xiao Junting. Zhou Ziyu only came once, when she came for a prenatal checkup and stopped by to see Wang Zhaining and Xiao Junting. On May 26, Y Bank announced the results of the issuance of the first batch of third-party payment licenses. 27 companies, including ZFB and CFT, obtained payment licenses, and the Kudong payment platform was also on the list. After learning the news, Li Jie was happy but also a little surprised. During a previous event, someone told him that it was unlikely that Kudong Group would be among the first to obtain a payment license. The other party said it was unlikely, so it was basically out of the question. Why did things suddenly take a turn? However, this doubt was soon solved. In the afternoon, Li Jie suddenly received a strange phone call. After hanging up the phone, he shook his head inwardly. It was not easy to repay this favor that came to his door. In the past, Li Jie would have been a little disgusted with this kind of forced favors, but now he doesn't care much. A qualified entrepreneur must know how to share benefits, and only by uniting all those who can be united can he make better money. If you hold all the benefits in your own hands, you will definitely not be able to get far. Capital bosses not only know how to make money but also how to distribute it. Just when Li Jie left the company and got in the car to go to the hospital to see Wang Zhaining, his cell phone rang again. "Auntie, what's wrong with you?" After chatting for a while and hanging up the phone, Li Jie said to Zhou Chao who was driving, "We will go to the hospital later. Let's go to the Bund first." In a cafe on the corner of the Bund, a few customers were sitting in 2s and 3s. Seeing Li Jie come in, Zhou Qing, who was sitting by the window, immediately stood up, waved, and said with an enthusiastic smile, "Xiao Jie, you're here." And Li Jie sat down opposite Zhou Qing, waved to the waiter, and also ordered a cup of coffee. "Auntie, what do you want from me?" "Actually, it's nothing, I just want to talk to you." Zhou Qing took a sip of coffee. "Chat?" Li Jie glanced at Zhou Qing and vaguely guessed the intention of this cheap mother-in-law to find him. Seeing that he didn't answer, Zhou Qing said tentatively, "Xiaojie, Xiao has been pregnant for a while. Shouldn't you two consider getting married? If it drags on any longer, Xiao's belly will show her pregnancy, and she won't even be able to wear her wedding dress." After hearing this, Li Jie smiled and said, "Auntie, Xiao and I will take care of this matter, and I will never let Xiao down, so don't worry." "Xiao Jie, Of course I'm not worried about you. Zhou Qing met Li Zhe's gaze, feeling like she was being seen through, and her smile became unnatural. Auntie, if you have nothing else to do, I'll leave first. I still have something to deal with. Li Zhe stood up as he spoke. At this time, the waitress had just brought his coffee. Xiaozhe, Zhou Qing called him unwillingly. Auntie, do you have anything else? Li Zhe turned around and said calmly. Under his polite and distant gaze, Zhou Qing's expression froze, and she could not speak any words. Seeing Li Zhe turn around and leave, she gritted her teeth and said, Xiaozhe, I also know that you have difficulties, but you also have to consider your child. You cannot let your child be looked down upon without fame or distinction. After hearing her words, the smile on Li Zhe's face completely disappeared and became cold. Auntie, I understand, I will take care of it, so you don't have to worry too much. After saying that, he left directly. Zhou Qing's face looked very ugly. It wasn't until Li Zhe walked away that she came to her senses and slowly sat down. Li Zhe had always been very polite to her, which gave Zhou Qing the illusion that Li Zhe should give her, as an elder, some face and be somewhat attentive to her words. But Li Zhe's attitude just now made her realize the reality completely. It turns out that Li Zhe's respect for her was just a show-off. In the eyes of the other party, she is just a lover's mother. That's right, there is nothing good about rich people. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 527. After Li Zhe walked out of the coffee shop, he turned around and took a look, shaking his head inwardly. What does Zhou Qing mean this time? Are you threatening him with the child? He originally thought that although this cheap mother-in-law was selfish and greedy for money, she was still considerate. But she didn't expect that she was not a peaceful person either. If he gave her a little more kindness, the other party would push her further. Li Zhe was still willing to respect Zhou Qing, an elder, as long as she did not interfere with the relationship between him and Zhou Ziyu. Otherwise, don't blame him for disrespecting his elders. His little fish was taught bad things by this cheap mother-in-law. How can a good sister know how to make tea? They were all taught bad things. After Li Zhe got in the car, he took out his mobile phone and called Zhou Ziyu. Xiao, where are you? When he received Li Zhe's call, Zhou Ziyu was sitting on a chair by the bund, lost in thought while watching the rolling river water. She wore a light blue dress and an off-white shawl on her shoulders. She had a beautiful face, and her loose hair was blown by the wind from time to time. She was like a person in a painting, breathtakingly beautiful. The tourists who came and went were attracted by her and kept paying attention. Some were even stunned. Occasionally, men wanted to come over and strike up a conversation, but they were stopped by Lu Ji and Lu Yingqi who were standing by. Although Zhou Ziyu has decided to compromise and give up fighting with Xiao Qiao, it does not mean that she has completely let go. She hasn't been in a good mood these days. In order not to affect the baby in her belly, she comes to the bund for a walk every day and sits for a while to relax. Zhou Ziyu has very few friends. Her former socialite girlfriends also reduced their contact with her after hearing the news about Li Zhe's proposal to Xiao Qiao. This left her without even one friend to whom she could confide her concerns. And she is not the kind of person who likes to talk to someone and expose her inner weakness. Do. At this time, the vibrating sound of the mobile phone brought Zhou Ziyu back to her senses. She took out the mobile phone from her handbag, glanced at the caller ID, adjusted her mood, and showed a gentle smile on her face. Husband, are you looking for me? After chatting for a while and hanging up the phone, the smile on Zhou Ziyu's face faded. She stood up from her chair and said to Lu Ji and Lu Yingqi, Xiaojia, Yingqi, let's go. After getting into the lava orange Porsche Cayenne, Lu Yinqi drove away from the Bund. After Zhou became pregnant, she stopped driving sports cars for the sake of her fetus. She always drove her favorite Porsche Cayenne or Mercedes-Benz Grand G when going out. More than 20 minutes later, the Porsche Cayenne arrived at Zebei and stopped under a 3-story office building. As soon as Zhou got out of the car, she saw Li Jie waiting for her in front of the building. Standing next to him was a young woman wearing a dark green dress, with shawl hair and a gentle temperament. "Xiao, you're here," Li Jie came over and put his arm around her shoulders. "Brother Jie, who is this?" Zhou's eyes fell on the young woman opposite. There were outsiders around, so she didn't call Li Jie her husband. After all, Li Jie is the one getting married now, and the bride is not her yet, so she should pay attention to the impact. This little Zhou is still feeling awkward. "This is Miss Nana, the top wedding planner in the country, who will be responsible for the planning of our wedding," Li Jie introduced. "This is my girlfriend, Zhou." "Wedding planner? Wedding?" After hearing this, Zhou felt surprised and unspeakably surprised, and her beautiful eyes lit up. Did Li Jie suddenly change his mind and decide to marry her? But this naive idea was fleeting, and she immediately rejected it. Impossible. Therefore, this should be just Li Jie's way of appeasing her. Nana smiled modestly and said, "Mr. Li, this is too much of a reward. I have only been working in this industry for a few years and have achieved some insignificant results." After saying that, she looked Zhou up and down and praised, "I have planned hundreds of weddings, but this is the first time I have met such a beautiful bride-to-be like Miss Zhou. It is truly an honor to plan the wedding of two such beautiful people. Well, what a perfect couple." This Nana is a relatively young wedding planner born in the 1980s. She founded a wedding studio in 2004. Over the past 7 or 8 years, she has organized unique and stylish weddings for many celebrities and rich people. She is considered a first-class wedding company in the country. However, it was her first time to take over the wedding of a top rich man like Li Jie, so she felt even more stressed. If this wedding is successfully held, it will undoubtedly increase the company's reputation in the industry, but if it is screwed up, there will be no hope of receiving much high-end business in the future. Originally, Nana had made an appointment with Li Jie to meet on Monday to discuss wedding planning. But Li Jie suddenly changed the time and said that they would meet tonight, which caught her off guard, and the preparations were not completed yet. But there is no other way. For top customers like Li Jie, they must try their best to satisfy no matter how unreasonable their demands are. Under the guidance of Nana and her assistant, Li Jie and Zhou walked into the office building together and arrived at a stylish and simple office on the 3rd floor. After a few people sat down, the assistant brought coffee. Nana picked up a folder from the office desk, flipped through it and said, "Mr. Li, are you and Miss Zhou planning to hold a wedding in July? That means there are less than 2 months left. If the wedding is held overseas, time is still a bit tight." After listening to Nana's words, Zhou sighed softly in his heart, and his last glimmer of hope was dashed. Holding a wedding overseas will not attract attention. Sure enough, Li Jie held this wedding just to appease her. Nana continued, "Where are you planning to host the wedding? We have successfully held weddings for our clients in popular wedding venues such as the Maldives, Hawaii, and Bali. Also, do you two have any specific requirements for wedding ideas? This is an overseas high-end wedding that our company has planned in the past 2 years. You two can take a look at it first as a reference." As she spoke, she handed over the folder in her hand. Li Jie took the folder, looked at it for a while, and then handed the folder to Zhou. "Xiao, take a look, wherever you like, we'll settle there." Zhou held the folder and looked at it for a while, then put it down and said, "Husband, it's up to you to make the decision." Li Jie saw that she was not very interested and understood why. "Xiao, if you don't like to hold the wedding overseas, then we can arrange it in Hangzhou." Zhou looked at him, smiled and said, "I don't like it. It's good to hold a wedding overseas. It's more romantic," she said, picking up the folder and looking through it. "Let's make it in Hawaii." Leisha and Josiah discussed with Nana for 2 or 3 hours. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, they finally finalized the wedding planning plan. After coming out of the office, Josiah did not get into her Porsche Cayenne, but got into his extended version of the Maybach with Leisha. "Mr. Lee, where are we going?" Joe Chow asked as he started the car. "Go to the Bund." Leisha turned to look at Josiah, who was leaning in his arms. She looked calm and looked out the window indifferently. The Maybach drove forward smoothly, the car was a little quiet, and neither of them spoke. "Husband, when will you and Xiao Jiao have a wedding?" Josiah said suddenly. "Probably at the end of June," Leisha said after being silent for a few seconds. "That means there is only less than a month left," Josiah chuckled, with a bitter smile. "The man she loves most is getting married, but the bride is not her. Although she has decided to compromise and stop fighting with Xiao Jiao, feelings cannot be controlled by control. Xiao Jiao will have a romantic and grand proposal ceremony, and will walk into the wedding hall with Leisha under the witness and blessings of the elders of both parties. And she didn't propose, only a shady wedding ceremony." As for Leisha's promise to her, Josiah was not as confident as he showed in front of Zhou Cheng. Will Leisha really get the certificate with her? She wasn't sure. She had previously thought that her status in Leisha's mind was more important than that of Xiao Jiao. But she was proven wrong. "How about I be Xiao Jiao's bridesmaid?" Seeing that Leisha didn't speak, Josiah forced a smile and continued, "I'm just kidding, Xiao Jiao will never want me to appear at her wedding. If I go, she will definitely think that I am going to cause trouble." Leisha sighed lightly, "Xiao, I'm sorry." After hearing the words "I'm sorry," Josiah couldn't help but tremble slightly. Did Leisha really lie to her? Leisha hugged her tightly and said, "Xiao, don't think too much, it's not what you think. I will definitely do what I promised you. It's just that the time for us to obtain the certificate will be postponed. It may have to wait until next year. But you don't have to worry about the child's household registration. I will take care of it. Even if he doesn't marry Josiah, there is still a way to put the child's household registration in his household registration book. Just do a paternity test. There's no way the child in Josiah's belly isn't his, right?" In fact, Leisha could have used the same method to put Xiao Junting's household registration in his name, but he did not do that. He promised Xiao Jiao, Josiah, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi that they would not let women from outside in. But he made an exception for Wang Zhaining. What would Xiao Jiao and the 4 of them think if Xiao Junting's household registration was in his name again? No one in this world can do whatever they want. He is a billionaire and has an absolute advantage financially. It is his feelings and interests that tie Xiao Jiao and the 4 of them down. But this doesn't mean that he can trample on their bottom line arbitrarily, otherwise they will leave sooner or later, no matter how rich he is. No one can tolerate others all the time, and no one can live without anyone. At that time, the gambling king fell in love with Lai Mei and wanted to marry him as the 5th bedroom wife, but the 4th bedroom wife united with the other wives and firmly opposed it. It's because the gambling king once promised his 4th wife that he would never marry anyone else. Faced with the opposition of all his wives, the gambling king had no choice but to reluctantly give up the beauty. Lai Mei was also banned by several wives, and had no choice but to go abroad and escape. But she failed in real estate speculation and incurred tens of millions in debt. Fortunately, Jet Li was willing to take over. No, it was to save the beauty from fire and water. After listening to Leisha's words, Josiah was silent for a while and said, "Husband, why don't the child have my surname of Zhou, just like Xiao Junting?" Leisha reached out and rubbed her head. "Okay, don't get emotional, I will make arrangements." Josiah turned around and met his eyes. "Husband, I'm not in a mood. You may not believe me when I tell you. After all, in your heart, I am a woman who is greedy for money and loves vanity. I just want our children to have a complete family when they are born, not just for a status. Otherwise, I would rather not have this title. When she said the last sentence, her tone was particularly decisive, and then tears flowed down her eyes. Li Jie was startled for a moment. This was the first time he saw Zhou Ziyu cry, weakly. He stretched out his hand to wipe away her tears, then held her in his arms and said softly, "Don't talk nonsense, how could you be the kind of vain woman in my heart?" Li Jie is not stupid. Even if he feels that his little lover is a little vain, he will never admit it. Besides, girls are a bit vain, but as long as they don't go too far, there's nothing wrong with it. Not only Zhou Ziyu, but also Xiao Jiao, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, and others are more or less vain. There is probably no woman who is not vain at all. What's more, Zhou Ziyu loves vanity, and he covets her body. You are only allowed to covet the beauty of other girls, but do not allow other girls to be vain. This is too much of a double standard. Husband, can you promise me something? Zhou Ziyu said softly. No, Li Jie probably guessed what she was going to say. Zhou Ziyu acted as if she hadn't heard anything, and continued, "Turn off the wedding, and let the child follow my surname of Zhou." At this point, she raised her head from Li Jie's arms, looked at him and said, "Husband, I said before that I would be content with just being your lover, and I shouldn't become more and more greedy." Zhou Ziyu always thought that what she wanted most was the status, but now she suddenly understood that what she cared about more was her status in Li Jie's heart. If you lose your status in his heart, what's the use of having an empty title? One thing. Those are two things, right? Li Jie thought for a while and said, "Okay, the child can take your surname Zhou temporarily, but when we get the certificate next year, the child's household registration will still be returned to my name and the surname will be changed to Li. In addition, the wedding cannot be postponed and must be held as usual." After a pause, he added, "Xiao, there is nothing wrong with being greedy, only excessive greed is wrong. Just like I'm also very greedy. Now that I have 4 of you, I'm always provoking other girls. Besides, what do you mean by that sentence? If you don't want to be the mistress of the palace, your lover, you are not a good lover." He accidentally let it slip. Zhou Ziyu had a weird expression after hearing this. "Hubby, are you praising me?" Li Jie smiled amusedly, "Well, that's right." At this time Zhou Chao suddenly said, "Mr. Li, we are here." Li Jie looked outside the car and found that he had reached Binjiang Avenue. Find a place to stop. After getting off the bus, Li Jie and Zhou Ziyu walked slowly along Binjiang Avenue. "Husband, you brought me here just for the wind, right?" Zhou Ziyu turned to look at him. Li Jie smiled at her, "You will know later." After walking for a while, the two came to a yacht pier where many modern yachts were parked. Not far upstream were the Aurora Tower, Citigroup Tower, Oriental Pearl Tower and other Shanghai landmark buildings. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 528. Li Jie pulled Zhou Ziyu to a large white yacht. This yacht is visually estimated to be about 18-20 meters long. The hull lines are smooth and very stylish and beautiful. Mr. Li, Miss Zhou, bodyguard Xu Mei was already waiting by the boat. Zhou Ziyu nodded to Xu Mei, looked at the yacht, and then turned to look at Li Jie. She vaguely guessed something. Li Jie got on the yacht first, then stretched out his hand to pull Zhou Ziyu up. Xu Mei followed closely and got on the yacht, and then the yacht started to move slowly. This yacht has 3 floors. The top floor is an open-air sightseeing area with a bar, sofas, and lifting sun visors. The second floor is a luxurious and comfortable indoor activity area, reception room, dining room, kitchen, bathroom, etc. The decks full with windows surround the entire floor, providing ample natural lighting and stunning ocean views. The third floor is mainly guest rooms and KTV rooms. Li Jie first took Zhou Ziyu to visit the yacht, and then took her hand to the open-air sightseeing area on the top floor. Standing on the deck, holding onto the railing, and enjoying the cool river breeze, people feel instantly refreshed. Zhou Ziyu raised her hand to tuck her hair that was blown by the wind, and looked at the broad river, with a relaxed and comfortable smile on her pretty face. At this time, the yacht also arrived near the Oriental Pearl Tower. The high-rise buildings on both sides of the bund were brightly lit, and the night view was breathtaking. "How's it going? Are you feeling a lot better?" Li Jie turned around and said to her with a smile. "Yeah," Zhou Ziyu hummed with a slight smile, his eyes falling on the brightly lit high-rise buildings on the other side. "Husband, you are so romantic, are you planning to propose?" Li Jie's expression froze after hearing this. Zhou Ziyu looked at him and said, "Why, did I guess it right?" Li Jie sighed lightly, "Xiao, if a girl is too smart, there won't be any surprises." Zhou Ziyu made a soft sound, bit her lip, and said softly with her beautiful eyes, "Husband, just pretend that I don't know." Can this be regarded as ignorance? Li Jie understood that this little fish was acting coquettishly with him. He hugged her from behind, then raised his hand and glanced at his watch. The two of them just hugged each other, quietly enjoying the scenery and blowing in the wind. Li Jie suddenly pointed to the other side and said, "Xiao, look over there." Zhou Ziyu turned her head and looked in the direction he pointed, and was stunned when she saw that the Shanghai City Center Building, Aurora International Building, Citigroup Building, and Magnolia Plaza's LED screens on the other side had all turned into marriage proposals. "Ziyu, marry me." Li Jie let go of Zhou Ziyu, knelt down on one knee in front of her, and then took out a small box from his pocket. "Ziyu, will you marry me?" Zhou Ziyu came back to her senses and looked at Li Jie, who was kneeling in front of her. Her beautiful eyes turned red and tears welled up in her eyes. Although she had vaguely guessed it, she was still extremely moved when she saw this scene. She nodded vigorously, unable to hold back her tears any longer. They fell down. I do." A smile appeared on Li Jie's face. He opened the small box and took out a strange-looking ring. Then he took Zhou Ziyu's slender white jade hand and put the ring on the middle finger of her left hand. Zhou Ziyu looked at the ring on her hand with a look of surprise, glanced at Li Jie and said, "Is this a kin pull tab?" "It's called a ring, but it's actually just a kin pull tab. It's just a small aluminum piece with Zhou Ziyu's name and birthday engraved on it." Li Jie nodded and said, "This is my own hand." "Did you pull it off the kin with your own hands?" Zhou Ziyu sniffed and chuckled as a joke. Li Jie shook his head, "No, Xiao, don't look at it like a kin ring, but actually." At this point, he paused and said, "It's just a kin pull tab." Zhou Ziyu stared at him closely, with a bored expression. Li Jie smiled and said, "Okay, I'm not going to kid you, I really didn't pull this ring off the kin, nor did I pick it up, but I made it myself. How about it also has your name and birthday engraved on it? Do you like it?" This is a kin pull ring that he handmade out of sterling silver. However, even if it is made of sterling silver, it is just a kin pull ring, not a ring. If any ordinary boy dares to propose to his girlfriend using a kin pull tab, let alone a successful proposal, it would be pretty good if he doesn't get beaten and break up. But when it comes to Li Jie, let alone the kin pull tab ring that he made with care, even if he randomly made a ring out of random scraps of grass, he can still propose successfully. It was just a kin pull ring made of sterling silver, worth only a few dozen yuan at most, but Zhou Ziyu was even more surprised and happy than the large diamond ring that weighed 12 carats and was worth 30 million before she received it. She looked at the kin pull tab in her hand and couldn't help but smile. Although the diamond ring was very expensive, it was only bought by Li Jie, but the kin ring was made by him with great care for her. The relationship between her and Li Jie was mixed with too many financial factors, which made Josie like this simple but thoughtful surprise more and more. This is how people are, they want money when they have no money. When there is no shortage of money and freedom of wealth, they start to pursue love again. Therefore, it is too difficult for a man. When you have no money, your girlfriend will talk to you about money, but when you have money, she will talk to you about love. Josie reluctantly looked away from the ring on her hand. Seeing Ligia still kneeling on the deck, she quickly pulled him up and hugged him tightly. "Husband, you are so good to me." At this moment, the little bit of jealousy in her heart towards Xiao Qiao completely disappeared. Ligia also hugged her tightly, a smile appeared on his lips, and he got another one. However, Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi also had to be coaxed. His proposal to Xiao Qiao and Josie was so romantic, it would be strange if Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xian were not jealous. And that little dragon girl was also in a mood after hearing that he proposed to Xiao Qiao. Hey, it's hard to be a man, but it's even harder to be a good man like him. The two hugged each other for a while, then Ligia let go of Josie, took a large bouquet of flowers from Xu Mei who was waiting aside, and handed it to her. Josie reached out and hugged the bouquet, took a look at it, and was a little surprised. Sunflower. She thought about it and realized that sunflowers seemed to represent silent love, silent giving, and consistency, and she vaguely understood what Ligia meant when he gave her this flower. If Ligia knew Josie's thoughts, he would definitely not know what to say. How could he have thought so much? Girls who are too smart tend to think too much. Ligia knows how to send sunflowers, but he doesn't want to send Josie roses anymore, which is different from Xiao Qiao. Besides, this sunflower also symbolizes the relationship between the two people. Ligia looked at her and said with a smile, "Xiao, I am like the sun, and you are like the sunflower, always chasing me." After hearing this, Josie pursed her lips and said with a smile in her eyes, "Hubby, do you know that you are actually—" She said, paused, quite arrogant. Ligia couldn't help but laugh. "Xiao, how dare you slander your husband? Be careful of the family law." After saying that, he hugged her from behind again. "Husband, I will always be your sunflower," Josie murmured softly. Ligia hummed slightly, but did not hear the deep meaning of her words. The two of them were loving each other quietly, and the proposal of marriage was playing over and over again on the LED screens of the Shanghai City building, the Aurora building, and the Citigroup building on the other side. After a while, Josie looked at the other side and said, "Honey, how long have you been keeping these big screens?" "An hour," Ligia said. "It's definitely not cheap, right?" "Fortunately, it's not expensive." Josie turned around and said, "Husband, there is no need for you to waste money like this. The cost of this hour is enough to buy a yacht like this, right?" Ligia was a little surprised when he heard this. Why did this little fish suddenly become so lively? "Xiao, are you happy tonight?" Josie met his gaze and nodded. Ligia smiled and said, "As long as you like it. Money is too much and it's just a number. You can spend it as you should. As long as you are happy, it is worth spending any amount of money. In fact, at this time, the advertising fees for outdoor LED large screens are relatively cheap. Take the Aurora big screen as an example. The advertising fee is 333,000 yuan per month, and it will be played 30 times every night, for 15 seconds each time. You can also choose to play continuously for 1 hour like Ligia, which is also 333,000. However, in 2013, the advertising price increased to 1.2 million minus 1.5 million per month. By 15 years, it had risen to 2.7 million per month. This increase is even greater than housing prices. If he wanted to have such a romantic proposal again, it would cost tens of millions, and Ligia would feel a little distressed. Romance is a waste of money. Ligia raised his hand and looked at the time and found that it was almost 10 o'clock, in the evening. By the way, Xiao, have you had dinner tonight? Not yet. Zhou shook his head lightly. Then let's go down and have something to eat. We can't starve you or the child in your belly. After Li Jie finished speaking, he was about to pull her off the deck. Husband, Zhou grabbed him. I want to ask you a question. You have to tell the truth. You are not allowed to lie. Okay, just ask. In your heart, among the four of us, who is more important? Li Jie was stunned for a moment. Why did this little fish ask such a childish question? Do girls become a little unreasonable after they fall in love, even if they were perfectly rational before? Xiao, the four of you are very important to me, you are indistinguishable. Seeing the look of dissatisfaction in Zhou's beautiful eyes, Li Jie continued, however, if I have to make a choice, Xiao, you are definitely more important. Husband, are you telling the truth? Zhou's beautiful eyes revealed unconcealable joy. Li Jie met her gaze and nodded seriously. In fact, Li Jie lied. For a long time, he really couldn't decide between Xiao Qiao and Zhou, and for a time, the balance in his heart gradually tilted towards Zhou. But after that dream within a dream, Li Jie completely understood that Xiao Qiao was more important in his heart. He was just obsessed with Zhou's gentleness, but his favorite was Xiao Qiao. It's not the sudden flutter of your heart when you meet Shen Xian by chance, nor the hesitation when you first meet Zhou, love at first sight, but the love that grows stronger over time. However, there are some truths that you cannot tell in front of your girlfriend. What girls often want to hear is not the truth, but just for you to coax her. Zhou and Li Jie looked at each other for a while, then suddenly smiled, hubby, these words from you are enough. With her intelligence, she could not fail to see that Li Jie was probably not telling the truth, but was just coaxing her. But she would rather lie to herself and believe that what Li Jie said was true. Going down from the deck to the restaurant on the second floor, after Li Jie and Zhou sat down, they called for the chef and ordered some food and 2 glasses of juice. Zhou couldn't drink because she was pregnant, so he drank juice with her. The two of them continued to enjoy the night view of the bund through the window while eating. Li Jie found that yachts are much more practical than sports cars and airplanes. Domestic traffic is too congested, and the sports car cannot be driven at all once it hits the road. Flying is even more troublesome. Wherever you want to go, you must first apply for a route a week in advance, and the approval procedures are very complicated. In cities along the river like Shanghai, you can sit on a yacht anytime you want, and you can also go out to sea for fun. As long as you don't drive too far, no one will care about you when you reach the border. Li Jie immediately decided to buy a top-notch luxury yacht. This large yacht, the Alexander, was only temporarily rented by him, and its facilities were only average. Yachts are not expensive either. A super luxury yacht more than 20 meters long costs only 30 to 40 million yuan. It is only the price of a top luxury car, but it can carry 20 to 30 people. After eating and resting for a while, Li Jie took Zhou to the guest room and KTV room on the 3rd floor. The KTV room is large and can accommodate 20 or 30 people singing together. There is also a small wine bar. There are windows on both sides of the bedroom. If you open the sunshade, you can enjoy the night view of the bund while lying on the bed. Zhou went to the bathroom to take a bath first. After finishing the bath, she returned to the bedroom with a bath towel around her and saw Li Jie lying on the bed, looking at the night view outside the window in trance. Husband, you should also take a bath. Li Jie came back to his senses and turned to look at Zhou. She had just taken a shower and looked even more sexy and charming. Her skin was so white and tender that it could ooze water. His heart moved, he stood up and held her in his arms, lowered his head and kissed her lips. The two kissed for a while and felt that Li Jie's hand was getting more and more dishonest. Zhou said with some resistance, "Husband, no. Child, don't hurt the child." Don't worry, I won't really bully you, and I will definitely not hurt our child. You just need to help me. Li Jie suddenly remembered that he had not experienced it on a yacht with Xiao Jiao, Zhou Ziyu, and the others. Which of those rich people has never had a yacht party? Driving a yacht with a boatload of girls and going out to sea. The grand feasts of the sea and sky are not all organized by them. That is to say, he, a billionaire, has too little experience and is not good at playing. How about waiting for the yacht to be bought and he also gives benefits to his employees and takes them out to sea for fun? Husband, go take a shower first, Zhou Ziyu pushed him. I won't wash it anymore. Li Jie became more and more excessive. Xiao, you won't dislike me, right? I don't dislike you, but I don't want to take a shower. That's fine. This guy is really bad. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 529. Platinum Bay Mansion. Xiao Jiao is sitting in front of the computer typing, but she is not writing a novel, but a graduation thesis. She had been busy with postgraduate entrance examinations and had forgotten about her graduation thesis. Today she logged into the official website of the Normal University and found that she had been admitted. She was so happy that she suddenly received a call from her tutor asking about her thesis. Only then did she remember that she hadn't written her graduation thesis yet, so she started working on it. Why is this paper so difficult to write? Xiao Jiao stopped typing and scratched her head. She felt dizzy after writing a paper for a day. Let's wait until tomorrow to find some papers to copy, for reference. It was only in 2009, that is, the year before, that undergraduate theses began to be checked for plagiarism, but undergraduate theses were rarely checked, and most students would refer to it when writing their papers. Students will not be driven crazy by plagiarism checks like students will do 10 years later. In the past 2 years, it even broke out that a master's thesis was copied entirely, except for the place name. Xiao Jiao looked at the time and found that it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. She stretched lazily and stood up from the computer. Why hasn't Li Jie come back? Is he still with the little vixen in the hospital? She also wanted to share with him the good news that she was admitted. This Xiao Jiao looks like sisters to Wang's Heining on the surface, but secretly she calls her a little vixen in her heart. Really plastic sisters. She came to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out, and was stunned at the sight. This apartment is in an excellent location, located in the core area of the Bund, only 100 meters away from the Huangpu River. It has a first-line river view. The view from Xiao Jiao's room is even better. Opposite is the Aurora International Building, the Citigroup Building, and the Oriental Pearl Tower and other Shanghai landmark buildings. Meeting you is my greatest luck, Ziyu, marry me. Xiao Jiao read the subtitles on the large LED screen, and the more she read, the more sour her tone became. Fortunately, she was still thinking about this guy Li Jie, so he actually went to propose to that Joe Fox, and he made it so romantic. She had already said that he was not allowed to be so romantic towards Zhou Huhu. Humph, meeting Joe Fox was his greatest luck, but what about her? What is she? This big pig's hooves. In the living room, Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi stood in front of the window together, looking at the large LED screen on the other side. Their expressions were complicated, ranging from envy to unwillingness. Entering June, it is the annual college graduation season. The normal college is full of graduates wearing bachelor's and master's uniforms, taking pictures together in small groups next to the landmark buildings on campus, leaving some beautiful memories for their college life. The school has also posted many banners to send off graduates. Today I am proud of my alma mater, and tomorrow my alma mater will be proud of me. I wish the graduates a smooth journey and a bright future. Now that you have graduated, congratulations on standing at a new starting point in your life. Wait a minute. Chen Xian and Lu Mingyang were walking side by side on campus holding a parasol. Lu Minjiang's eyes fell on a group of graduates taking group photos not far away. Graduation season is here. Senior Li Jie must also come back to attend the graduation ceremony, right? It's been almost a year since I enrolled in school and I haven't seen my senior yet. Li Jie has basically not returned to school since his junior year, and has only come back once or twice a year. So far, he has not come back even once in his senior year. Lu Mingyang and his new batch of freshmen had heard of Li Jie's countless glorious deeds, but had never seen him before. Chen Xian also glanced at the graduates who were taking pictures. Even if senior comes back, he will probably come and go in a hurry. It will not be easy to see him. It's okay. On the day of the graduation ceremony, I will stay outside and I can always see the seniors from a distance, Lu Mingyang said with a smile. Chen Xian also chuckled slightly, looking at Lu Mingyang. She seemed to see herself back then. She was just a sophomore in college at that time. She was full of admiration for Li Jie, and even impulsively kissed him in public. Now that she thinks about it, she really feels that she was stupid, but she has never regretted it. Lu Mingyang added, "Senior sister, you are about to be an intern in your senior year. Have you ever thought about whether you plan to be an anchor all the time in the future?" "Well, I will continue to be the anchor for the time being. I will wait until I can no longer do it." Chen Xian's tone was filled with emotion. The competition in the anchor industry is getting bigger and bigger. Many ordinary people have become rich overnight because of being anchors, which has caused more people to flood into the live broadcast industry. However, before the popularity of smartphones, due to the limitations of hardware conditions, PC-side live broadcasts, the market is just that big. As the largest live broadcast platform in China, Kudong Video has only 30 to 40 million daily active users. This is completely incomparable to DY, which had more than 680 million daily active users 10 years later. Of course, this data is very watery. There are more anchors, but the market has not expanded much, so competition has naturally become fierce. The content of short videos has also changed from the early beauty videos and film and television clips to a variety of themes such as humor, talent performances, life records, scientific revelations, and opinion discussions. Since last year, more and more new anchors have emerged, which has put pressure on Chen Xian and other early beauty anchors. In addition, with the advancement of beauty and makeup technology, many ordinary girls with average looks have transformed themselves into beautiful anchors under the camera. As a result, their appearance advantage has also begun to be lost. Many people watch short videos and live broadcasts, but it doesn't matter whether you are a real beauty or a fake beauty, as long as you look good and know how to flirt. Chen Xian was still very popular last year, with nearly 10,000 people in her live broadcast every time. However, her popularity has plummeted since this year. Recently, there are only 2,000 or 3,000 people in her live broadcast. His popularity plummeted, and his income also plummeted. In the past, Chen Xian's monthly income was at least hundreds of thousands, sometimes as much as 300,000 or 400,000, but now it is only 50,000 or 60,000 per month. The anchor industry is like this. It gets popular quickly and cools down quickly. The period of popularity can only last for 1 or 2 years. Last year Chen Xian was still one of the top 10 internet celebrities on the Kudong platform, but this year she was surpassed by several newcomers. Not only Chen Xian, but also early anchors such as Zhao Minjiao and Su Yani have seen their popularity decline to varying degrees. Especially Su Yani, anchors like her who take the sexy route will get cold faster. Last year, the platform forced her to be one of the top 10 internet celebrities. But this year, her popularity has plummeted and she has fallen out of the ranks of first-line internet celebrities. Only Sun Wanning, who specializes in game live streaming, has not only not seen a decline in popularity, but is still rising. The platform is planning to promote her to replace Zhao Minjiao and become the new top sister. Sun Wanning's popularity has risen instead of falling, mainly due to the rapid development of the esports industry. Last year, Qwen Technology established the first formal esports club in China and actively promoted the development of League of Legends esports events. As the most popular League of Legends anchor, Sun Wanning has been surrounded by countless gamers. Chen Xian also realizes that being an anchor is not a long-term solution. In 2 or 3 years, she may be completely cool. But once you're used to being an anchor, it's not that easy to change careers. Once you're used to earning tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands a month, it's hard for you to find a job and earn a salary of 3 to 4,000 yuan. The agent's advice to Chen Xian was to change her career to become an actor. But it's not easy to be an actor. Although Chen Xian is now a first-line anchor, if she wants to change her career as an actor, she can only start with small roles. Chen Xian has already prepared for the worst. If it doesn't work out, she will save more money by working as an anchor for another 2 or 3 years, and then she will open a small shop, as long as she can maintain her livelihood. However, she still has a large mortgage to repay every month, and it is impossible to have less money. When Chen Xian and Lu Mingyang walked near the school's small shopping mall, they saw a crowd of people gathered in front of them. It was bustling, and some students stopped to watch. "Isn't this Senior Yang Hao?" Lu Mingyang said, a little surprised. Chen Xian hummed slightly, and then looked back at Yang Hao, who was surrounded by classmates. Yang Hao originally didn't plan to go back to school so early. He just wanted to attend a graduation ceremony. As for taking graduation photos and having reunion dinner with his classmates, he is a big star, and he is destined to have no interaction with ordinary people like them in the future, so why should he talk to them again? After Yang Hao participated in Running Man, he became completely famous, and there were constant announcements. Although he was not a first-tier star, he was already a second-tier star. The staff all call him Hoj, and no one calls him Hazi anymore. This also made him more and more drifting. Before his graduation thesis was due, he asked his assistant to write up a random paper, thinking that his tutor would definitely give him the face of such a big star. But he didn't expect that his tutor didn't give him any face as a big star. He picked out a lot of mistakes and then sent the paper back and asked him to rewrite it. He came back this time to work on his thesis. What Yang Hao doesn't know is that he and Li Jie are actually the same mentor. Li Jie, a billionaire, asked someone to write an excellent paper for him and submitted it to him. How could his tutor coddle him? However, this kid Yang Hao, even though he was distracted in his heart and looked down on ordinary classmates, he behaved very kindly on the surface and didn't have the airs of a big star. He patiently cooperated with the onlookers to sign autographs and take photos, which also made a good impression on the juniors and junior girls who knew nothing about him. Building 7, 406. In the dormitory, the old ceiling fan turned feebly, trying its best to dissipate the heat in the air. Wang Haihang was sitting in front of the computer correcting his paper, and He Zhigang was also sitting in front of the computer, but he was not working on the paper, but looking at recruitment information. He Zhigang and Ding Li still broke up. The two people do not match in age, personality, and family background. When they first got together, they could make up for it with freshness and passion. However, as time goes by, as the freshness and passion gradually fade away, the conflicts between the two parties become more and more serious. It becomes increasingly difficult to reconcile. Once, He Zhigang accidentally discovered that Ding Li had gone on a blind date behind his back and followed the family's arrangements. This incident became the last straw that broke their relationship. After the two had a big fight, He Zhigang moved out of Ding Li's house. Although he broke up with Ding Li, this relationship made He Zhigang grow a lot. His personality became more mature and calm, and he became more practical at work. It can only be said that women are really a school for men to grow up. He Zhigang has been an intern at Kudong Group for a year. Not long ago, He Zhigang received an admission offer. He only needs to pass the 3-month probation period to become a full-time employee. But he was a little hesitant about whether to stay in the Shanghai stock market for development. If he stays in Shanghai and continues to work at Kudong Group, he should have a good development based on his relationship with Li Jie as classmates. But it is not easy to really stay in Shanghai. Housing prices in Shanghai are getting higher year by year, and now the average housing price is almost 25,000 square meters. To buy a house with a slightly better location and about 70 square meters, it would cost 15.6 million. With his salary level, he simply can't afford it, and the house price will only get higher and higher in a few years. As for some experts saying that housing prices will fall, He Zhigang doesn't believe it at all. He heard Li Jie say that housing prices in first-tier cities like Beijing and Shanghai are unlikely to fall. Compared with those unreliable experts, he certainly believes in Li Jie, a billionaire. As for waiting for the company to allocate rooms, not to mention that it is difficult to get the qualification for housing allocation. Even if you get the qualification for housing allocation, it is not free, you still have to spend money to buy it, but the down payment is relatively low and the loan interest is also very low. If you can't afford a house, you won't be able to stay in Shanghai, let alone find a girlfriend to get married. After his relationship with Ding Li, He Zhigang became more aware of the importance of economic conditions. It will be very difficult to get married in Shanghai without a house or money. Soft rice is not that delicious either. So He Zhigang had the idea of returning to Quancheng, Shandong province for development. It was closer to home and the housing prices were much cheaper. But after reading a lot of recruitment information from Quancheng companies, he found that the salary was too low. The starting salary for undergraduates was only more than 2,000 points, and some were even as low as 1,500 points. In Kudong Group, the starting salary for undergraduates is 3,600, and it will be 4,000 to 5,000 after becoming a full-time employee. He Zhigang sighed in his heart. With a salary of 2,000 to 3,000 and a house price of 8,000 or 9,000, he still couldn't afford to buy a house even if he returned to Quancheng. It's better to stay in Kudong Group and look forward to promotion, salary increase, and housing allocation. There is still some hope. Damn it, Wang Zhaihang suddenly cursed and scratched his head hard. What's wrong? He Zhigang turned to look at him. Then Teacher Bai is just looking for trouble with me. He basically just corrects other people's papers. I have corrected them 3 or 4 times and it still doesn't work. The defense was about to begin, but the thesis had not yet been passed, so it was no wonder that Wang Zhaihang was anxious. He Zhigang smiled and said, "You are unlucky to meet Lao Yang. He is like this. If you try harder, he will probably let you pass before you answer the defense." The tutor, Wang Zhaihang, was famous in the school for being strict and picky, and he would inevitably be tortured when he encountered him. "Hangzi, have you made arrangements at work and home?" He Zhigang took out a cigarette, handed one to Wang Zhaihang, lit it for him, and then lit one himself and took a long drag. "Well, for a public institution, the money is only 2,000 to 3,000 a month, but the work is easy and hassle-free, and the benefits are good," Wang Zhaihang said casually. "It's good to have connections at home," He Zhigang sighed. His family's conditions were not very good and they couldn't give him any help. When she was with Ding Li, she said that she wanted to help him arrange a public institution, which was more stable than a private enterprise, but He Zhigang refused. Wang Zhaihang took a breath of cigarette and said with a smile, "You are not bad at all. Stay in Shanghai and follow Jizi." "No, it's Mr. Li. Are you afraid that you will have no future?" He Zhigang smiled and did not answer. After working as an intern at Kudong Group for nearly a year, he finally understood that Li Jie was somewhat loyal and looked after him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get the offer. But that's it. Whether he can get a promotion or a salary increase all depends on his work performance. Don't expect that Li Jie will take special care of him if he has this kind of relationship as a classmate or roommate. However, He Zhigang could also understand that even if Li Jie was interested in him, people could not be greedy. If he doesn't perform well at work in the future, he will resign on his own initiative without Li Jie rushing him. The dormitory door was suddenly pushed open, and Yang Hao walked in. Seeing He Zhigang and Wang Zhaiheng, he smiled and said, "Brother Gang and Brother Wang, are you both here?" Although he still called the two of them brothers as before, he did so in a teasing and joking tone. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 530. Hey, isn't this Brother Hao? He Zhigang stood up with a smile. Brother Hao is back, come on, sit down quickly. He pulled up a chair and warmly greeted Yang Hao to sit down. Brother Hao? Brother Gang, you should call me Hazi. Yang Hao was stunned for a moment and said with a smile. No, you have become a big star now. How dare I ask you to call me brother? Only Jazi can let you call me brother, He Zhigang said with a smile like a joke. Yes, Brother Hao, Wang Zhaiheng also said with a smile. Yang Hao glanced at him, pulled up a chair and sat down. Brother Gang, Brother Wang, you two, stop making fun of me. Even if I have some fame, I can't put on airs in front of my buddies. Besides, if it weren't for Brother Jie, I wouldn't be where I am today. He Zhigang stopped joking and took out a cigarette and handed it to Yang Hao. Want one? Don't dislike it if the cigarette is not good. Yang Hao took out a cigarette, picked up the lighter on the desk, lit it skillfully, and took a breath. What do you dislike? I didn't smoke your cigarettes at all back then. He Zhigang smiled and said, you don't just smoke cigarettes. There are toilet paper, shampoo, shower gel, and meal cards. Every time we go to the cafeteria together, your meal card doesn't have any money. By the way, you kid even rubbed Heng's condom, he said and glanced at Wang Zhaiheng. After hearing this, Wang Zhaiheng thought of something and his expression changed. When he was in love with He Lu, he bought a box of condoms to keep, but he didn't use any of them, and Yang Hao used them all with his girlfriend Nana. Yang Hao said with a smile, I wasn't poor at that time. He looked at Wang Zhaiheng as if he was remembering something and said, Brother Wang, He Lu is doing well now. Last year, she even won a Porsche in the lottery at the company's annual meeting, and she even drove the sports car. After hearing what he said, Wang Zhaiheng's expression became even worse. He Zhigang changed the subject and said, Poor? You, the boy, were so willing to rent a house with your girlfriend. All that money was spent on the room fee. Yang Hao smiled and said, Brother Gang, let's go to the cafeteria to eat together later. I'll treat you to whatever you want. Canteen? Brother Hao, you are a big star after all, why can't you be more generous and spend the entire 5-star hotel? Okay, just a 5-star hotel. I'll arrange some after-dinner activities for you after we're done. Although the relationship between He Zhigang, Wang Zhaiheng, and Yang Hao was not very good, they had been together in the same dormitory for 3 or 4 years, so they still had some feelings for each other. In addition, we are about to graduate, and we are about to part ways, and it will be difficult to see each other again in the future, so even if we had some conflicts before, we don't care anymore, but we are still a little reluctant to let go. As we chatted about what happened in the past 3 or 4 years, the more we talked, the deeper our feelings became. Yang Hao raised his hand and glanced at the time and said, Where's Lin Zheng? Invite him and let's go out and have some fun together. It's a breakup. Lin Zi should be spending time with his girlfriend. He Zhigang thought for a moment and said, Hazi, do you know when Jazi will come back? I don't know either. Yang Hao shook his head. Brother Zhe will probably show up during the graduation ceremony. Don't you have any contact with Jizi? What is Brother Zhe's status now? He is no longer on the same level as us. If nothing happens, I would be too embarrassed to disturb him. Brother Gang, don't you also have Brother Zhe's phone number? He's Higang listened and said nothing. He also has Li Zhe's phone number, but he has rarely called it. As Yang Hao said, the identity and status of the two parties are so different that they are no longer in the same world. He's Higang first called Lin Jing, and then the three of them went downstairs and left the dormitory together. As the three of them walked on campus, people would recognize Yang Hao from time to time and come over to say hello and ask for autographs and photos. Seeing Yang Hao smiling and taking photos with a petite and cute girl, He's Higang and Wang Haiheng inevitably felt a little envious and jealous. Back then, Yang Hao, a kid who was nothing but flattering Li Jie, became a famous star in China. Especially He's Higang, who was still confused about his future development just now, but when he heard that Yang Hao said that he had bought a high-end residence of more than 200 square meters with a loan in Shanghai, he felt even more uncomfortable. Li Jie took the initiative to give him a chance, but he refused. After the girl left, He's Higang calmed down and said with a smile, "Okay, Brother Hao, you really look like a star." Yang Hao smiled slightly and was about to say something when he looked forward and said with some surprise, "Isn't this the Cultural Affairs Committee and the others?" When He's Higang and Wang Haiheng heard this, they both turned around and followed his gaze. They saw Lu Kaiyu, Chen Mengting, Heji, and other 7 or 8 girls in the class dressed in bachelor's degree clothes under the willow tree not far away. "Let's take graduation photos together." Sister-in-law, Yang Hao walked over quickly and greeted Lu Kaiyu warmly. "Yang Hao, are you back too?" Lu Kaiyu nodded to him, and then looked at He's Higang and Wang Haiheng who were following closely. She took the initiative to say hello to He's Higang. "Brother Gang." "Kaiyu, you're back," He's Higang smiled and nodded. "Where's Jizi?" "He didn't come back with you." "Well, it will be a few days before he comes back." Wang Haiheng looked at Lu Kaiyu, who was beautiful, generous, and had an increasingly calm and capable temperament, and his thoughts were a little complicated. He had pursued her at first, but she chose to become Li Zhe's lover. "Big star, can you please take a photo with me?" Chen Mengting, He Nai, and the other girls said to Yang Hao with a smile. "Of course, I can't wait to take a photo with some beauties." After Yang Hao finished speaking with a smile, he said to Lu Kaiyu, "Sister-in-law, can I take a photo with you?" Seeing Lu Kaiyu nodding in agreement, there was a hint of happiness in his eyes that could not be concealed. Lu Kaiyu is now the assistant to the president, assisting Li Jie in managing the company, and holds great power. If you have a group photo like this and show it off at the right time, you may get some unexpected benefits. He's Higang looked at Yang Hao, who was smiling from ear to ear, standing next to Lu Kaiyu and taking a photo with her, and his heart moved, and he vaguely guessed what the other person was thinking. After the two of them took a photo together, he said to Lu Kaiyu, "Kaiyu, let's take a photo together too." Wang Haiheng stayed in the hospital for more than 10 days, but she couldn't live any longer and wanted to move back to the apartment, but Li Jie insisted on letting her stay for a month. During the confinement period in the hospital, full-time medical staff are responsible for taking care of her, providing dietary guidance, and postpartum recovery training, which will help her body recover faster and better. On the day when Xiao Junting was 1 month old, Li Jie took Wang Haiheng and her daughter back to the apartment, and then held a full moon party for her. It was a family dinner and no outsiders were invited, so Li Jie had a meal with Wang Haiheng, Xiao Junting, and Xiao Jiao. 1-month-old Xiao Junting already weighs 8 pounds. After shedding, her skin is white, tender, and very cute. Xiao Jiao and Shen Xinyi gathered around her and teased her. She opened her big, watery eyes and looked at Xiao Jiao and the others, not recognizing life at all. "Come, give your godmother a hug. Xiao Jiao took the child from Wang Haining's arms and gently bumped her. Xiao Junting seemed to particularly like Xiao Jiao, and she laughed as soon as he was in her arms. This made Wang Haining a little jealous. Li Jie glanced at Xiao Junting in Xiao Jiao's arms, and then set his sights on Zhou Ziu, who was standing aside with a smile. He will soon be the father of 2 children. If Zhou Ziu is pregnant with a boy, it will be a son and a daughter. Li Jie suddenly realized that having children early was a good thing. If he had no children, if something unexpected happened to him, not only would Kudong Group fall apart, but all his property would also be difficult to preserve. If Zhou Ziu and Lu Kaiu had no reputation, even if they had some ability, they would at most be able to keep the little property in their hands. And his parents are ordinary old people with little knowledge, let alone the ability to take over his huge wealth. Just like the boss of Pony Films died suddenly on the eve of the company's listing, family members competed for inheritance rights, which directly led to the failure of the listing and the company's bankruptcy. But now that he has a child, he has an heir. He wants to make another will to help Xiao Jiao and the others. Even if Kudong Group cannot keep it, at least they can keep part of the overseas cash assets. Even if they keep a small part, they still have billions of assets, which is enough for them and their children to live a prosperous life without worries about food and clothing. Thinking like this, Li Jie made up his mind and must be prepared for backup. He didn't want his children to call others daddy if something happened to him, and his property and women would be taken away. That's really grass growing on the grave. Husband, what are you thinking about? Xiao Jiao couldn't help but ask after noticing that his eyes were a little gloomy. Li Jie came back to his senses, looked at the 4 of them, and smiled. Nothing. After the full moon banquet, 2 or 3 days later, Li Jie and Xiao Jiao took a plane to Hongcheng together. The 2 are going back to school to attend the graduation ceremony and take campus wedding photos. From school uniforms to wedding dresses, this is his promise to Xiao Jiao. The 2 of them took a plane at noon, and it was already past 2 p.m. when they arrived in Hongcheng. After getting out of the car surrounded by bodyguards, Xiao Jiao looked at the 3-story building in front of him and said with a reluctant expression, "Husband, this should be the last time we come back. Come on, let's go up." Li Jie hugged her and walked towards the building. Going up to the 2nd floor, Xiao Jiao took out the key and opened the door of the rental house, and walked in with Li Jie. This 1-bedroom small rental house has been unoccupied for almost half a year and has accumulated a lot of dust. Bai Wei came back to school last year to run errands, so she stayed here for one night and helped clean it. Xiao Jiao looked at everything in the rental house, and the look of reluctance on his face became even stronger. In this small rental of 50 square meters, she and Li Jie spent the most beautiful days. But she and Li Jie will graduate soon, and this small rental house will have to be surrendered. They may never have the chance to return here. Let's clean this room first, Li Jie said. Yeah, Xiao Jiao nodded. The 2 of them worked together and spent more than half an hour cleaning the house. Looking at the newly renovated rental house that was now clean and tidy, Xiao Jiao couldn't help but smile on his face, feeling very accomplished. Li Jie smiled and stretched out his hand to scratch her face. Go and take a bath. Look, you have turned into a little cat. The house was cleaned, but the 2 of them were stained with a lot of discouragement. Husband, how about we go take a shower together? Xiao Jiao bit her lip and continued, we can't live here for a few more days, why don't we experience the feeling before? Li Jie listened and nodded with a smile, yeah, that's fine. Bedroom, living room, kitchen, balcony, it's not an easy task for the 2 of them these days to find all the previous feelings. It was already past 6 p.m. when the 2 of them relived their old dreams. Li Jie was leaning on the bedside, smoking a cigarette, while Xiao Jiao lay lazily on top of him. This half-pack of cigarettes was found while cleaning the room. It must be 2 or 3 years old, and I don't know if it has expired. While living in a rented house, Li Jie was still writing books and would occasionally smoke a cigarette to refresh himself. After he stopped writing books, he rarely smoked anymore. After smoking, Li Jie asked Xiao Qiao to get up from him and start getting dressed. "Husband, why are you going?" Xiao Qiao asked curiously. "Going to socialize, we have a dinner with Vice Principal Zhang and the others tonight," Li Jie said while getting dressed. "Do you want to go?" Xiao Qiao shook his head. "You go ahead, I won't go." She disliked this kind of social interaction. "I'll go back to the dormitory later and have a look." Girls' dormitory, 4th floor, room 210. Zhang Yu put on a bachelor's degree uniform and stood in front of the mirror looking pretty for a long time. She had a lot of good luck this year. First, she fooled a stupid, no, a good brother. He spent 1 or 2 million to invest in a big online movie for her. After the big movie was aired on the internet, although it was not very popular and the big brother lost all his money, Zhang Yu broke out of the industry with a sexy scene. He became popular on the internet for a while, his fans increased sharply, and he became a big internet celebrity. Last month, she received another role as the second female lead in an urban drama, and her career as an actress has also begun. Zhang Yu has been busy filming recently, and she will have her thesis defense tomorrow, so she took a day off from the crew and came back at short notice. She plans to go back to the set after completing her defense and will not attend the graduation ceremony. Zhang Qian was sitting at her desk, familiarizing herself with the paper and preparing for tomorrow's defense. She glanced at Zhang Yu, who was looking pretty in front of the mirror. "Zhang Yu, have you passed the makeup exam?" When Zhang Yu heard this, she immediately felt bad. She had been extremely busy in the past 2 months and had no time to take the makeup exam. She could only wait until the clearing exam in September. If she hadn't been afraid of leaving a stain on her future stardom, she would have really wanted to give up the diploma. This thing is of no use to her. At this time, Lu Li and Shen Man walked in laughing together. When they saw Zhang Yu, they said a little surprised, "Big star, you are finally back." Zhang Yu smiled and said, "What a big star, I'm just a little actor." Shen Man said in a joking tone, "I am a small actor now, but I will definitely become a big star in the future. Xiao, please sign a few more for me later, and I will keep them until you become famous." "Okay, I'll lend you some good advice," Zhang Yu said with a sense of confidence. Lu Li looked around and said, "The defense will be held tomorrow. Isn't Xiao Qiao back yet?" Zhang Qian then said, "Sister Wei said she would be back today, but I don't know why she hasn't arrived yet." "Where's Bai Wei?" "I don't know, she seems to have gone out for something. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn." Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 531. Xiao Qiao may have gone back to the rental house with Li Jie, Lu Li guessed. "Then they haven't returned the rental house yet," Shen Man said with some surprise. "No, Li Jie has been renting it for 3 or 4 years. Lu Li paused and said, "However, I am about to graduate, so the rental house will definitely have to be returned." Zhang Qian thought for a moment and said, "Li Jie is a very caring and attentive person. How should I put it?" Shen Man said hesitantly, "Scumbag and affectionate." "Yes, they are both scumbag and affectionate," Lu Li and Zhang Qian looked at each other and said with a smile at the same time. Zhang Yu smiled disapprovingly and said, "Scumbag. I'm afraid you have never seen a real scumbag. Which rich man only has one woman? Let alone a billionaire like Li Jie. Li Jie is definitely a good man. He is rich, attentive, and responsible. I always thought that he and Xiao Qiao would probably not last long, but I didn't expect that 3 or 4 years later, not only did the two not break up, but they also got married." She was really envious of Xiao Qiao in her heart. She was willing to share a man like Li Jie even if he was dumped just for fun, let alone share it with other women. "Marriage," Zhang Qian and the others exclaimed in surprise. "What did you say, Get married. Xiao Jiao is getting married to Li Jie. Zhang Yu glanced at them and said, you don't know yet, but Li Jie has already proposed to Xiao Jiao, and they will probably get married soon. What are you talking about? The dormitory door was suddenly pushed open, and Xiao Jiao walked in with a smile, followed by bodyguard Zhou Zheng. Xiao Jiao, you're back, we all miss you. Seeing Xiao Jiao back, Zhang Qian, Zhang Yu and Lu Li all stood up in surprise and surrounded her. Zhang Qian even hugged her excitedly. Lu Li couldn't help but ask, Xiao Jiao, I heard that Li Jie proposed to you. Are you really going to get married? Xiao Jiao snorted lightly, with a happy smile on his face. Really? Xiao Jiao, that's really congratulations to you. You're so envious of getting married right after graduation. What is this called? From school uniform, to wedding dress, yes, from school uniform to wedding dress. After hearing Xiao Jiao's own admission, Zhang Qian, Lu Li, and Shen Man talked excitedly. Zhang Yu smiled and took Xiao Jiao's arm. Xiao Jiao, when will your wedding be held? I will be your bridesmaid. Yes, when we get married, we will all go to the wedding. Zhang Qian and the others followed suit. Xiao Jiao hesitated, looked at them and said, I told you, please don't reveal it to anyone. Don't worry, we will definitely not tell anyone else. At the end of this month. At the end of this month, Zhang Qian and the others were all surprised. There are still more than 10 days left, aren't you a little too hasty? The wedding won't be too big, and we won't invite too many people, Xiao Jiao said with a smile. In fact, the wedding was originally scheduled for July. Xiao Jiao knew very well that Li Jie would change his mind temporarily and move the wedding forward entirely for the sake of Zhou Hu. He also wanted to hold a wedding with that Zhou Hu. If it was delayed for a long time, Zhou Hu would not be able to wear the wedding dress once her belly became pregnant. However, as a winner, she didn't bother to argue with that Zhou Fox. Even if there is a wedding, as long as there is no certificate, the other party will be a despised mistress. A mistress will always be a mistress. Xiao Jiao, you must send me an invitation to your wedding, Zhang Yu said eagerly. How could she miss this opportunity to attend the wedding of a top rich man? She could show off for the rest of her life. Xiao Jiao, don't forget to send us invitations, Zhang Qian and the others also said quickly. Xiao Jiao smiled and said, don't worry, we are all good sisters, how could I not invite you to my wedding? Zhang Yu and Lu Li looked at Xiao Jiao with strange expressions. As soon as Xiao Jiao and Li Jie got married, they would truly become the hostesses of a billionaire family. They didn't expect that they would still have the opportunity to be best friends with the wives of top wealthy families. After the dinner, it was already past 9 p.m. Li Jie and Bai Wei accompanied Vice Principal Zhang and other school leaders and walked out of Lanhui Hotel together. Ziaji, I hope you can reconsider your postgraduate studies, Vice President Zhang said in a sincere tone. Okay, Colonel Zhang, I will consider it, Li Jie nodded and said. At tonight's dinner, in addition to reminiscing about old times and building relationships, Vice Principal Zhang and the others mainly tried to persuade Li Jie to stay in school for graduate school. It's not for taking classes either, just to show off your name. Li Jie declined directly. With his current status, academic qualifications are no longer of any use. Besides, even if he really wanted to go to graduate school, there was no need to choose Hongchen Normal University. Since the beginning of this year, many top domestic universities such as Peking University, Shuimu, and Aurora have called Li Jie to ask if he has any idea of studying at their schools for graduate school. It sounds extremely unrealistic for many first-class prestigious universities to actively invite students from a third-rate ordinary university to study for graduate school. But if this student is a top billionaire, this is very realistic. Why is Hongchen Normal University so famous? It's just a jackpot. After Vice Principal Zhang and the others got in the car and left, Li Jie raised his hand and looked at the time, then turned to Bai Wei and said, It's still early, how about we take a walk together? Bai Wei looked at him and nodded lightly. Li Jie took Bai Wei around the parking lot behind the hotel and walked up the stairs along the path. This Lanhui Hotel is an on-campus hotel that mainly receives visitors from outside the school and parents of students. It is located on the edge of the school's artificial lake. Behind the hotel is a small mountain road leading to the administration building, library, and the north gate of the school. There are rocks on both sides of the path, and the trees are relatively remote. In addition, there are few street lights. When it is dark at night and the trees cast shadows, it looks a bit eerie. Therefore, few students walk this way at night, and they all go from the road to the teaching building. Li Jie and Bai Wei walked slowly side by side, no one said anything, everything was dark, with mountains, rocks and trees on both sides, as if they were the only two people left in the world. When he reached the top of the hillside and was about to go down the steps, Li Jie suddenly put his arms around Bai Wei's slender waist. The steps are a bit steep, so be careful. No, it's okay. Bai Wei stiffened and resisted a little. It's better to be careful, Li Jie insisted. He really didn't have anything else on his mind, he was just worried about her safety. Bai Wei said no more, letting Li Jie hold her in his arms and continue walking down the stairs. Li Jie turned to look at her, but he couldn't see her expression clearly in the darkness. Hey, he suddenly stepped on the air and stumbled, almost falling down along with Bai Wei. The steps are a bit steep, be careful, Bai Wei said softly. Why do these words sound so familiar? Li Jie's face was a little confused. He also reminded Bai Wei to be careful, but he almost fell. It's all because of the broken steps. What he didn't see in the darkness was a smile on Bai Wei's lips. After walking through the difficult mountain road with steps, the two arrived at the school's administration building. There is an artificial fountain in front of the building. Li Jie and Bai Wei walked to the artificial fountain together. The clear and transparent spring water sprayed in all directions from time to time, making the surrounding air cool. That person has suffered retribution. Not only did his company go bankrupt, but he also took on huge debts and was hiding from them everywhere, he suddenly said softly. Bai Wei was stunned for a moment, and then she understood something, with an indescribable complexion on her face. Li Jie, thank you. Her voice was very soft, but extremely solemn. Li Jie turned to look at her, then turned his attention to the fountain in front of him. Why are you so polite to me? He had long realized that Bai Wei must have a story, otherwise she would not be so repulsive to men and have such a strong sense of prevention. But who doesn't have a story? Li Jie has long passed the age of excessive curiosity, and he is not willing to interfere with others. Don't sympathize with and help others easily. Your kindness and kindness may not be understood and recognized by others. Are there many cases where good intentions are not rewarded, but kindness is repaid with hatred? Until Xiao Qiao was strict with himself and kept bringing him and Bai Wei together, making the relationship between the two more and more subtle. Only then did Li Jie want to understand Bai Wei's thoughts. If you want to help her treat her illness, you must first understand the cause so that you can treat her accordingly. Last year, he sent people to Ludong to investigate Bai Wei's situation. Bai Wei's mother was pregnant before marriage, that is, Bai Wei was born first and then got married. Bai Wei's grandfather, Mr. Bai, was a university professor. He was very optimistic about one of his students and wanted to marry his daughter, Bai Mu, to him. Mr. Bai's students also fell in love with this beautiful junior sister who was 5 or 6 years younger than him. But Bai's mother didn't like him as a senior brother. Instead, she got together with a classmate in the class and even eloped. However, Bai's mother finally broke up with her boyfriend, and under the arrangement of Mr. Bai, she got pregnant and married the senior brother she didn't like. Although Bai's mother became pregnant out of wedlock, and Bai Wei's stepfather not only married a beautiful daughter-in-law, but also had a child for free, it is said that the relationship between the couple was good, and Bai Wei's stepfather was also very good to her. But since Mr. Bai made some mistakes and was forced to retire from the leadership position of the school and died in depression, and Bai Wei's stepfather also resigned from the school to become a student and go into business, and became prosperous, the relationship between the couple became more and more intense. Things got worse and worse, and we often quarreled. Finally, not long after Bai Wei entered elementary school, the couple divorced, and Bai Wei followed Bai's mother. After 5 or 6 years of this, when Bai Wei was in the first grade of junior high school, Bai's mother died suddenly due to illness, and Bai Wei's custody rights fell into the hands of her stepfather. Although she is not related by blood to her stepfather, they are father and daughter in their household registration. Bai Wei lived with her stepfather for more than 3 years. When she was a freshman in high school, she suddenly moved out of her home and severed the custody relationship with her stepfather through a paternity test. This is all what Li Jie sent people to investigate. Why did Bai Wei suddenly fall out with her stepfather? Li Jie could guess the inside story without even thinking about it. It was nothing more than that the stepfather had evil intentions towards his stepdaughter who was growing up and becoming more and more beautiful, but he failed to succeed. The stepfather even used this as a threat to terminate the custody relationship. Why is Li Jie so sure that the other party will not succeed? With Bai Wei's character, if the other party really succeeds, she will never compromise and will definitely fight to the death with the other party. Among all the girls he knows, Bai Wei is the smartest, rational, strong, and courageous one, and is worthy of a big responsibility. Zhou Ziyu is also very smart and can see through other people's thoughts at a glance, but he was misled by his Philistine, shallow, and cheap mother-in-law. She lacks independence and always wants to be attached to the strong. She is not as independent, strong, and courageous as Bai Wei. If Bai Wei is a tough green bamboo, standing upright in the wind and rain, then Zhou Ziyu is a vine climbing around a big tree, living in symbiosis with the big tree. After guessing the inside story, Li Jie felt very uncomfortable. How can his woman be touched by others? Although he and Bai Wei have nothing to do yet, he already regards her as his woman in his heart. Li Jie used some tricks to bankrupt his scumbag stepfather's small company, and saddled him with a huge debt that he would never be able to repay in his lifetime. Every time your wealth increases by one level, you move up a level, and the network resources you can use will increase tenfold. A millionaire is considered an ordinary person with some money. With a millionaire, you can make many valuable connections. With complementary resources, you can do many things that ordinary people can't do. Once the asset exceeds 100 million, you will be a wealthy class. It is easier for a top rich man worth tens of billions to deal with a small boss with several million assets than for an adult to deal with a baby. The two were silent for a while, and Li Jie turned to look at Bai Wei. Can you tell me about your past? If you want to open your heart, you must first open your heart. Don't you know everything? Bai Wei stopped mid-sentence, nodded and said, okay, if you want to listen, I'll tell you. How about we go over there and chat? Li Jie pointed to the bamboo forest not far away from the library, where there are seats for people to rest. After listening to Bai Wei's story, Li Jie discovered that he had only guessed half of it. Bai Vena's stepfather was a scumbag who was gentle on the outside but dirty on the inside, and very deceptive. But what really hurt her the most was that he was betrayed by the brother next door who often helped her, trusted her the most, and even admired her a little. After finishing speaking, Bai Wei sighed softly and smiled. That's it? Actually, it's nothing. Life is so long, who won't encounter something bad? I was pretty lucky and didn't suffer much damage. Luck? How is this luck? There are a few ordinary girls who can see through her stepfather's disguised true face, and maybe they think it's love and are being played by a scumbag without even realizing it. And that time she was betrayed, she managed to escape the danger quickly, showing a resourcefulness and decisiveness that was far beyond ordinary people. Li Jie remembered a piece of news he had seen. After a 17-year-old girl discovered that she had been abducted, she turned around and sold her to a trafficker. Some people are born with extraordinary intelligence. Li Jie touched his body, then took out half a pack of cigarettes, took out one, lit it, and took a puff. This was the half pack of cigarettes he found in the rental house. Most of the delinquent young people in movies and TV series who hang out in the market are kind-hearted lickers who are willing to sacrifice everything for the heroine. Just like the debt-collecting protagonist in the movie When Men Are in Love. But in reality, most of these people are scum. This kid can't be let go. He must end up worse than that scumbag stepfather. Let him go abroad to see what a real scumbag is. Why did you suddenly start smoking? Bai Wei said, a little surprised. When I was cleaning the rental house, I found half a pack of cigarettes. If I don't smoke, it would be wasted, Li Jie said, and took another puff. Bai Wei was stunned when she heard this. With Li Jie's worth, would he still be reluctant to part with half a pack of cigarettes? It's good that you didn't smoke before, but this thing is harmful to your body. Okay, then I won't smoke. Li Jie smiled and pinched out the cigarette. I didn't say I wouldn't let you smoke. I know.